Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream ahead of Double Gameweek 36. It is very early on. We are just 2 hours away from the deadline, but this will go by very quickly. And we're going to cover all the key topics, talk about the best captaincy options and the best triple ups for Brighton and Newcastle, and anything else you may want to discuss. There will be some very specific questions tailored to your teams. I'll try to answer as many of those as you can, as well as the general things that can help even more people out in the process. You can see all of my points and ranks on the left hand side, pretty much what I covered in the reaction stream. There will be more UCL fantasy content. I'll try to upload it fairly soon across the weekend and going into early next week, and the plan is to do a deadline stream as well on the Tuesday. As for the reaction stream, I'll let you guys know as well. That is also on the cards. That is something else I want to do, but we'll get more into that as the time arises. Let's get straight into today and these questions that I already put forward. So thank you for those that have already been waiting. I very much appreciate that. And let's get straight into it. So Patrick says, hi Dylan, doing Watkins to Isak this week. Is it worth doing Jota to Wilson if we get news that he starts for a -4? Good luck this game week. Likewise, and I think it is worth a -4 hit. And yeah, I would go ahead with it if we get news that Wilson starts. Even if we don't get the news, I still think it's potentially worth it. But of course, this is the fixture you really want Wilson to start in against Leeds. Aiden says, hey Dylan, my team is Raya, Kepa, Trippier, Botman, Gabriel, Mings, Chilwell, Matoma, March, Martinelli, Salah, Rashford, Haaland, Watkins, and Solanke with 2 free transfers and 3.2 million in the bank. What should I do? I think some fairly simple moves would include Solanke up to Isak/Wilson, depending on who starts today. I would give Isak the edge naturally, but if we get news that Isak is benched today and Wilson starts, then I would probably go for Wilson instead. As for your second move, I probably would do March to McAllister if you want to use 2 free transfers, but the alternative would be to roll and then instead look to bolster your Man City assets. And actually, just as a disclaimer, I have made 1 transfer already, and that was March out for McAllister, and I've put him in the starting 11, and I am waiting for the team news. I'm not captaining Watkins, by the way. I think he could score against Tottenham, but my plan is to captain either Isak or Wilson, whoever comes in, for Watkins, depending on the lineups, and that will be my final team pretty much. So I've got 1 more free transfer left over. I've currently got Rashford on the bench because since my team selection video and everything else I've uploaded throughout the week, Rashford has been labelled as a doubt by Erik ten Hag in yesterday's press conference. So that's something else that has made things maybe a bit simpler for some of our benching dilemmas, but also maybe spice things up a bit. I actually think that was the kind of bit of news we got yesterday that pushed me over to buy McAllister in the end. Cylindra says, hey Dylan, is it worth selling Maddison, Gakpo, Watkins to Willock, Joelinton, Zaha for a punt, Wilson for a -8, or sell one of Martinelli, Maddison, Gakpo to Willock, Joelinton, and Watkins to Wilson for a -4? From those situations you mentioned, I'd rather do the -8. Obviously, it's not ideal to do that, but actually, yeah, I think it's still worth the -8. The thing is, I think Watkins could do well this week, but with Wilson having a double, better fixtures in general, I think that extra hit is potentially worth it. But to be honest, either scenario is fine, and it's completely up to you there. In terms of the midfielder I would look to sell, it would be definitely one of, yeah, I think I maybe look towards Gakpo instead out of one of those two. But yeah, I think the -8 is what I'd go for. It's not ideal, especially with only 2 free game weeks left, but yeah, I think that's what I would do. JP says, hi Dylan, with Varane likely back, who is the better buy out of Dalot, Lindelof? Start Dalot, Lindelof, or Estupinian? Well, at this moment in time, I'd probably say Dalot. Lindelof was kind of nailed on, assuming Varane and Martinez didn't return, and of course Varane is nearing a return here. And I think Shaw could still play as a centre-back. So from those two, I'd go for Dalot. He's better for bonus points, bit more attacking threat too. And in terms of how nailed they are, I wouldn't say Lindelof is a guaranteed starter at this point. Bringing in Wilson for a -4, but hoping to bench Mara is worth it. Yeah, I think it's worth it. Always depends on which striker you're selling, but I'm assuming it's someone like Watkins. I think it is worth a -4 hit. Drop one of Mitoma, McAllister, Rashford, Salah, Mahrez, Isak, Wilson, Haaland. Can we trust Erik ten Hag? Well, no, that's a fair point. I don't think we can completely trust them in a way, but Then again, you just look and think, what's the reason to lie? Just to gain a minor advantage or, catch them by surprise? But I think he's telling the truth this time, and he's probably a serious doubt for tomorrow. That doesn't mean he is for Double Gameweek 37, of course, for Man United, but I think from those options, I wouldn't drop a Brighton midfielder when they've got a double. That makes no sense. I think at this point in time, I'd probably drop Rashford, and the one that I'd probably drop next would be Mahrez, out of those that you mentioned. Welcome to Bill. So I have 2 free transfers, thinking of doing Mac in for March. Yeah, I think that's pretty sensible. A lot of the algorithms would also suggest you do that as well. So I'm looking at your team. You've got Isak, Trippier. You don't have a third Newcastle player, unless I'm missing somebody. And in terms of Brighton, so yeah, you got Matoma, and you get in McAllister here and Estupinian. So yeah, what you're really lacking, so to speak, is a third Newcastle player. So yeah, it's a difficult one, because would I really be willing to part with Kane or Haaland, even for Wilson? Probably not. So I think what I do in your situation is, Mac in for March and roll the other transfer. It could be really good for you, because next week, I know you've got a triple up in Man City already, but it does give you flexibility to get some more triple ups from Double Gameweek 37, and maybe even alternate your Man City triple up a little bit. So maybe next week you can downgrade downgrade Kane, and then use that money to upgrade Grealish to Kevin De Bruyne if we get news or we have an inkling that he's going to start. So I think I just rolled the second transfer, to be fair. Let's try whiz through these, because the questions are rolling in and the live chat is very busy. Should I take a -4 for Isak? I'm thinking of getting out Rashford also. Yeah, I would take a -4 for Isak, but it always depends on which striker you're selling. As for Rashford out, no. If you can, I'd keep him, because you might want him back by Gameweek 37 anyway. What moves do I do if Wilson doesn't start as well? Yeah. So, okay, you put your transfers out. I was literally going to say. So, Raya to Iverson, Botman to 4.4 million defender, Greenwood to Wilson means March out next week. 2, the second option. March to McAllister, Botman to Share, which means no Wilson. 3, March and Greenwood to Ferguson, an Arsenal player. I would go probably for the second option, but I'm just kind of curious why you would do Botman to Share. You don't need to use, if you've got 2 free transfers, you don't need to use your second one just for the sake of it. I don't think Botman to Share is that much of an upgrade. So at this point in time, I'd just say roll the second transfer and do March to McAllister. Isak or Wilson? Isak, we've covered this all throughout the week and probably in the last few weeks as well. Wilson's better for stats and also in terms of points since Double Gameweek 29. Also better in that regard. Only 1 blank in that time, or maybe at this point now 2. But Isak could be on penalties. That's also maybe a contentious point. Wilson might have something to say about that. But Isak is better for bonus points and expected minutes, in my opinion. So I would go for Isak. Welcome, Nick. Thanks for the weekly stream. Thank you very much, Nick. Bought Willokin for March. Thoughts on taking a hit to replace Rashford? I wouldn't if you can. You might have some good squad depth there with someone like Shaw or Trent on your bench. I think that's completely fine, because Rashford is someone you may want back in Double Gameweek 37. Everton at home will park the bus versus rotated City. Can't see more than 2 goals. Yeah, I did say, I think the other day, that I expect a low-scoring game, at least compared to the usual for Man City. Now, it doesn't mean they can't turn up and absolutely destroy Everton on their day, because they can, and they can do it to anyone. But I think you might be right. I think that's what a lot of us are predicting. Maybe a narrow win for City, 1 or 2-0, maybe even a 2-1. Yeah, Everton could pull off a surprise. You never know, and it would be great for the league, but I think City still have enough to get through this, and they're just in such great form and momentum. It's so difficult to take points off them. Even Madrid at home weren't able to. Thank you very much for the super chat there, Sheriff Gabbar. I very much appreciate that. I'll go through this now. I may rank Robbo, Stone, Shaw in order. Also, if I need the striker in 37, does it make sense that both start Leeds and Wilson starts 37? Quick turnaround. Thank you very much for the super chat and the question. It's a really good one. In terms of ranking those 3 defenders, it probably would be Luke Shaw first, Robertson second, and Stones third. Now, if you said Trent instead of Robertson with his new role, I probably would have put Trent first, just because of his attacking threat and bonus points potential simply. Robertson hasn't done that this season, and with Luke Shaw, I think United have the best clean sheet probabilities of any of those 3 teams, and I say that, and I've got Luke Shaw on my bench, which I don't really like too much, to be fair. Yeah, I think that's also pretty good. In terms of your second question, yeah, I think it's possible that both Newcastle strikers start against Leeds, and with the quick turnaround, I mean, there's still, I think, 3-4 days in between. So Isak could start both. The thing is, though, when you also bear in mind Game Week 37, I just don't see either striker starting all 3 of those games. So I can see your conundrum there. But with Callum Wilson, I think he's just the least likely to start 2 or 3 of those 3 games. I think Isak is a bit more likely. That's why I've got a natural preference for him. But if we get kind of a leak later on before the deadline that Wilson is going to start and Isak doesn't, that's where I just go for Wilson, simply because the Leeds fixture is what you really want to target. But thank you very much for those questions. I appreciate it. Sam says start Grealish or Shaw. I'd go for Luke Shaw. Quack quack says FPL Rubber Ducky. I was actually taking care of some ducks the other day. Zulu says, I guess we're all waiting for team news for Watkins out. The thing is, I think Watkins could do well. It's kind of typical. He's been blanking for, what, 3 or 4 game weeks in a row now. And tough fixture on paper against Spurs. I would not be surprised if he scored. I think he will, actually. But the reason why we'd be selling him to an Isak or Wilson is because they've got a double game week, better fixtures, and they could still outscore Watkins by a considerable amount. No transfer this game week and free in 37. That's pretty good. Is it good to replace Watkins to Greenwood for cash in game week 38? So yeah, I can see what you mean there. You only have 1 free transfer in game week 38 regardless of what you do now. So yeah, I think Watkins to Greenwood could be decent. The thing is though, because what I just said, I think Watkins could score. I think it might even be worth, keeping him, but then again, it would force a -4 hit in game week 38 if you need to do that same move and then upgrade someone else. So that's a really tough one. It really depends on what transfer you're looking to make in game week 38, and if you're going to bring in someone of real quality like a Harry Kane or Salah, in that case, I would do that and sell Watkins to Greenwood. But if the player you're bringing in game week 38 or the one you're thinking of isn't really that enticing, I'd probably just keep Watkins and start him because I think he could do well this week. It's a nice differential over those that are selling him, like myself. March and Watkins to McAllister and Isak for -4. Already owned Isak, says Bestie. Yeah, I think that's the way I'd go about it. Yeah. Maybe you meant to say Wilson in the second one, but it's fine. Yeah, I think that's what I'd do. Grealish to Fernandes for a -4. I don't think I'd take a -4 hit for Fernandes this week, and it would have been the same the other way around, to be fair. Welcome, Punjabi. Yeah, it can be scorching hot over there. I've also come from quite a hot country, naturally. Obviously, kind of being raised in the UK, though, it's completely different. So, yeah, sometimes it is tough to adjust. Hopefully, you're doing well there. Sol Kane for a Newcastle striker, says Andy. That's a tough one. If that's your only way to get Newcastle forward, I probably would. But the thing is, you'd probably want Kane back in game week 37. JP says reasoning for starting Kepa over Raya. It's honestly 50-50 for me. It's a bit like last week where maybe most people said start Raya and they both got 3 points in the end. I look at both and, yeah, maybe Brentford are a bit more likely for a clean sheet. They did really well in the reverse fixture. I think what could be the difference maker is West Ham. If they rotate heavily and just focus on the Conference League, then, yeah, Raya could have a really good chance. But I also look at Raya, and I covered this in the team selection video, I believe, and Brentford haven't kept a single clean sheet at home since game week 22 in a 3-0 victory over Southampton. This is back, I think, on the 5th of February, something ridiculous like that. So when I look at it that way, I think Chelsea maybe defensively at home are a bit more solid and keep more clean sheets. But yeah, there's not much in it, to be fair. Any hit you consider worth taking this week? I think for the likes of Isak, Wilson, naturally. I'd also maybe say a Matoma or McAllister. Apart from that, you're really just looking at a Salah, a Harry Kane. Those are the only options I'd probably take a -4 hit for this week. How about Gross instead of Matoma as I'm chasing rank? Yeah, I like that idea. The thing is, though, when I look at Brighton's injury problems, I think they've got 8 players out or doubtful for the Arsenal game. I think that Gross is going to play as a right back, and the defensive midfielders would be Caicedo and Gilmour. And then you're looking at McAllister in a number 10 position. So I like Gross. He could still do really well from right back, but I think the main appeal for him is when he's playing in the midfield, and I don't know if he's going to do that, at least not in the Arsenal game. So I would rather go for Matoma, to be fair, but it's not a bad shout, and to go different, that's a really good way of doing it. Yeah, we covered that, Martin. Any chance to start Mahrez instead of Haaland? I probably wouldn't. And Mahrez isn't even guaranteed to start. I would not be surprised if Mahrez was benched against Everton and then starts against Madrid. And then maybe Bernardo Silva drops to the bench in that game. So, look, yeah, you would expect Mahrez to start here, but it's not a guarantee, and I'd still rather go for Haaland. -4 for De Gea, worth it? No. I think he will keep a clean sheet, but, you know, there's still not a guarantee, and you'd only be gaining 2 or 3 points from that decision, so not too sure. Is Grealish playing? I don't think he's guaranteed to start. It could be Foden and Mahrez on the wings, or it could be something else entirely with Alvarez starting. It all really depends on Pep Guardiola's thinking in terms of what he wants to do against Madrid in the second leg. That will have a big part to play, but I'm not so sure if he's guaranteed to start, to be fair. Hey Dylan, start Gabriel or Brennan Johnson? That's a tough one. I think I'd go for Brennan Johnson. I don't think Arsenal keep a clean sheet. Willock or Joe Linton? Willock, it's just something that I said a week or two ago. Joe Linton has better stats, but I think Willock was a bit more impressive in all the games I've watched recently for Newcastle. And I think Joe Linton and Willock, to be fair, could be negatively affected by Sean Longstaff being out injured. It looks like he's going to be out for at least the first game of 37. I think that's a big blow for their prospects because it changes the role they play in the midfield. Start 2 of Jota, Shaw and Estupiñán. I'd probably go for Shaw and Estupiñán. March to McAllister, worth taking a -4 for anyone? Yeah, I think that is worth a -4 hit, by the way. Well, I'm guessing that's your free transfer, then you're looking to take a -4 hit. The other players I take a -4 hit for is a second Brighton midfielder like Matoma, Isak and Wilson. That's pretty much it, I think. Then you're looking at maybe a Salah or Kane, the kind of traditional big hitters. I think Haaland will start, but it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't. That's what I said the other day. So if I had to lean one way or the other, I think he starts. Let's wait and see. It wouldn't be too bad if he was benched. It spices things up a little bit, I think. Hey, mate, what do you think about KDB? Is he going to play? I don't think so. I think he's going to be rested for the Champions League second leg. He looked knackered. Even Grealish did as well towards the end of that game. Of course, it's not all about fitness. It's about sharpness and how they recovered, how they're training. But I don't think KDB will start at least. Yeah, I don't think so. You think Rashford won't play? I don't think so, based on Ten Hag's comments. Of course, we can't fully trust him, I guess, but I don't think so. Leno or De Gea in goal? I have them both. De Gea, definitely. I think he's got a better chance of a clean sheet. Hey Dylan, how's it going? I'm thinking of getting a Man City midfielder for release. What do you reckon? Yeah, I think that's fairly sensible. It's obviously a bit tricky to guess who's going to start this week, and whichever Man City midfielder you get, the issue is not just if they start now in this weekend on the Sunday, but also if they're going to start in Double Gameweek 37. And it's really difficult to get a Man City midfielder who's going to start the next 3 games, which you probably want. So that's the tricky question, but I do like that. Hey mate, what do you think about KDB? I don't think he's going to start, like I just said. What do you think of the Madrid City game? How do you think the second leg will go? I mean, Madrid are just inevitable in the Champions League, but I looked at that game. I thought it was very even. A 1-1 was a fair result. Obviously, there was a debate about the Kevin De Bruyne goal and whether it was out of play, but Madrid, you know, pretty much played it straight after, so there was no real contention until the goal was scored. But I think Man City have the edge. They've won the last 14 games on the trot at the Etihad in the Champions League. They're unbeaten in 25. And they're the best team in the world at the moment, so it's difficult to see past Man City, but you can never rule out Real Madrid. And I was very surprised by a lot of people in the UCL fantasy stream saying, oh, why do you think Madrid are going to win today? And I don't know, I think people disrespect Madrid a bit too much in the Champions League, and I don't get it. It's a bit like disrespecting Brazil in the World Cup or something. I really don't understand it. Is taking out Rashford to Odegaard for a -4 and benching Alvarez worth it? I wouldn't do that personally, because you'd probably want Rashford back for next week, so I wouldn't. Willock and Enciso / Ferguson or McAllister and Wilson? McAllister and Wilson is definitely my preference there. Hi Dylan, Old Sub here. Differentials for this week? Yep, Wonder, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Differentials for this week. I mean, apart from, you know, which triple ups you go for, so maybe having Wilson and Isak at the same time, I think some differentials to consider are Enciso / Ferguson. Really difficult to tell who's going to start in each game. It might be Ferguson in the first and Enciso in the second, but I have a feeling both of them will start at the same time against Arsenal. So Enciso could be on the right in March's place, and you've got Ferguson down the middle, McAllister as the attacking midfielder, and Matoma on the left. So I think Enciso could be the one, actually. I think he could benefit greatly from March being out. So yeah, I'd say one of those two. Trossard return against Brighton. Depends if he starts, to be fair. If he's on the bench, it obviously limits his probabilities very much. Trossard isn't guaranteed to start, and I think it's really close between him and Martinelli. You know, I've kind of looking up recent form. I think Saka should be benched, but the reason why he isn't is because Arsenal don't have a natural right winger. As good as Trossard is, his best positions are on the left or down the middle. Martinelli, same thing. You look at Gabriel Jesus, he could play on the right-hand side, but whenever he starts, he's playing down the middle. So, yeah, it's going to be between Trossard and Martinelli to start, so it's not a guarantee he does. Therefore, it's difficult to kind of gather that or to really guess if he's going to get a return or not. If he starts, I think he's got a decent chance. Would you play KDB if you had him? Depends on the context, which player you starting KDB over, but I actually probably wouldn't in most cases. So if you're comparing him to Trent, I'd probably start Trent. De Bruyne to Salah, definitely Salah, and same with Harry Kane. Of course, it can backfire, and if De Bruyne starts, he's always got a chance of returning, but I just don't see him starting personally, and I could be wrong. KDB to Salah for a -8. I probably wouldn't because next week Man City have a double, and whilst De Bruyne might not start both, even one start and a cameo off the bench is enough, I think, for a big haul. So I wouldn't do that. Captain Trippier or Isak? Isak all day long for me. I look at Newcastle's recent clean sheet record and also Isak and Wilson's returns in recent weeks. And for me, it has to be a forward right now. Definitely Isak. I think Watkins could score, but I could see Isak scoring 2 or 3, or at least getting 2 or 3 returns. So there should be a good difference, I think, between the two, despite my belief in Watkins scoring. Bench Rashford for Gabriel, says Max Power. -8 to bring in McAllister, Isak, Trippier, and either Botman or Schär. That's fair. -8 to bring in McAllister, Isak, Trippier. Yeah, I think that's completely fine. And in terms of Botman or Schär, I think Botman is slightly better for bonus points and value, but Schär has more attacking threat, so it's completely down to you, who you go for there. But yeah, I think that -8 is pretty solid. I'd probably start Rashford over Gabriel just in case because, the way I see it, Rashford either starts or doesn't play at all. I don't see him being on the bench, and, I could be wrong there, but that's just my personal opinion. How do you feel as an Arsenal? I mean, look, there's still a chance. I think there's 3 or 4 games I think Arsenal bottled, so to speak. It's really difficult, I think, for a team like Arsenal to, kind of keep up this pace of 90-plus points. Remember, this is their first season challenging, at the very highest level in the Premier League for a very long time. So, yeah, I think they bottled 3 or 4 games, and they should never have done it. But they've still been very consistent over the course of the season. I think it's also kind of similar to what you could say about Liverpool when they got 97 points and they lost out on the title. Could you call that bottling? If Arsenal get 90 points, is that bottling? I'd slightly disagree there. Eze for this week, I think is a decent option. Same with Zaha and Elise. Yeah, I think that's a decent shout. Another differential, I think, for Wanja as well. Get Isak or Joelinton, already have Wilson. Isak, all day long. Punjabi says Dylan Gakpo to Mahrez or Odegaard. I'd rather go for Odegaard. The reason why Mahrez will be more appealing is because he's got a double next week. And if he's going to continue to be rested in the Champions League, including obviously on Wednesday next week, then I think Mahrez is definitely the one to go for then. But we just don't know that. And I said it earlier in the stream, I have a sneaky feeling Mahrez could be benched against Everton, or at least not get the full 90 as we expect, and then start against Real Madrid, and that could be very crucial in terms of his minutes in Game Week 37, but I'd go for Odegaard right now. Any spam comments? I'm sorry, we're not going to go through them. Try to be patient. March to Elise, that is, or Eze. From those two, I'd probably go for Eze. Having said that, there are other midfielders I'd rather go for this week. So a Brighton midfielder, in this case, like McAllister or Matoma. You've also got Joelinton, potentially, if you need a Newcastle player. Also Willock, who's probably my preference in the midfield. And you've also got a few others there, like Odegaard. But yeah, I'd probably go for Eze there. Bruno to Salah and Gakpo to a C midfielder for no hits. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm just curious about which Man City midfielder you go for. I think Mahrez is the most appealing, but he's also not a guaranteed to start. That's the big issue, I think. If both start, would you play Shaw or Grealish? Sure. Enciso or Rashford, says Omabek. This week Enciso. So that's what I'd go for, yeah. I think with Rashford, though, of course, even if we got, news that he's going to start or whatever, yeah, it's probably go for Enciso for the double game week. Is March to McAllister worth a -4 or just start Estupinian and Jota? Yeah, I think it is worth a -4. To be fair, though, in your case, I'd just probably start Estupinian, I think. How will the leaks influence your captaincy pick? It just influences who I'm going to buy, so Wilson or Isak. So if Isak doesn't start today and Wilson does, I would bring in Wilson and probably captain him. However, with Wilson, I'm a bit more open-minded to captain someone else. With Isak, if he's starting, I'm definitely going to captain him. I think that's pretty much how it influences my picks there. Welcome, Skygirl. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Bench Grealish or Shaw? I'd bench Grealish. What are you doing if Wilson and Isak start? Buy Isak. Captain Isak, Haaland or Matoma? I'd captain Isak. Do you think Arsenal defender Kiwior is a good enabler for the final few game weeks? I think so. Once again, though, I don't see too many clean sheets. So out of the last 3 games, I probably see 1. I think Wolves at home is the most likely, but then you also look at Arsenal's home and away record in terms of clean sheets, and they're definitely more likely on the road. But I think Forest and Brighton will probably score against them. So I think he's a decent enabler, and that's all you can really ask for. But in terms of if you're going to start in most weeks or in all of these 3 remaining game weeks, I probably see only 1 clean sheet at the maximum. I definitely don't see against Brighton. You're looking at one of those final 2 games. But yeah, I think he's a decent enabler. I think he'll start every game. The only issue that could arise, especially if Zinchenko is, indeed out, is that if Tierney gets an injury as well, it could be a case of Kiwi or left back and then Holding in the side, and that could be a really poor and leaky defence once again. March to McAllister for -4. Yes, I think it's worth it. I'll be honest though, even for free, I was tempted to maybe roll the transfer, but in the end I just did it because also McAllister has a double in 37, and with Solly March, he's not guaranteed to be back for Game Week 37, so yeah, I think it's worth it. Should I start Ake or Grealish and Kepa or De Gea this week? I'd go for De Gea definitely over Kepa as a Balaga, and as for Ake or Grealish, probably Grealish from those 2. I'm not even sure if either start, to be fair. Hi Dylan, start one of Grealish, Gabriel, or get a second Newcastle defender, Wilson. Out of those 2, I'd start Grealish, but I would be tempted to get Wilson in and start him over both. Raya to Steele or Mings to Stupinian, says Aiden. I would do Mings to Stupinian, I think, from those 2 options. Quite a close one. Trippier or Share, says Yash. Trippier, definitely. Northstar says, good morning. Do I start Mahrez or Gross? Would be using my only free transfer of March to Gross. Cheers. I'd start Gross. Despite Mahrez, obviously the appeal of him starting against Everton away, but I would go for Gross. Martinelli or Odegaard? Who would you bring in from now to Game Week 38? It's difficult because I think from February, Martinelli has been better in FPL, but Odegaard in recent weeks has been fantastic, and even in games where he might not have been playing really well, got the goal against West Ham, also against I think it was Southampton, obviously the big hauls against Chelsea and Newcastle. So yeah, Odegaard's been really good recently, so I'd probably go for Odegaard just about. Very good for bonus points too, but it's really close, neck and neck, I'd say. I'd definitely go for both over Saka based on form. Captain Haaland or Maximan? Is that Maximan or Watkins? Oh, those 3, probably Haaland, unfortunately. I have Still as my keeper. Any worries? I'm not really seeing a clean sheet in either game, but still can get some saves, and I think that's enough already. But yeah, the reason why I'm starting Stupinian is simply because he has a double, and it'd be the same if I had Still. Yeah, Rashford is a doubt for today, I think it is, so yeah, based on Ten Hag's comments, it's really unlikely he's going to play. But of course, you never know. There's still that distinct possibility he gets a start. But the way I see it, he either starts or doesn't play at all. Start Shaw or Foden? Shaw. I'd probably go for Shaw. I think Foden has the highest ceiling, but Shaw's more likely to return. Start Stones, Shaw or Estupinian? Shaw. Welcome, Joseph. I know everyone has a benching headache, so please help me with mine. Bench one of Darwin, Stones, Robertson or Shaw? Probably Robertson. It's close between him and Stones, actually. I'd definitely start Shaw and Darwin. And of course, with Darwin, you're hoping that he starts. Against the leaky Leicester side, I think he could do well. But Stones or Robertson, really close one. You know what? I think I'd bench Robertson just about. If it was Trent, I'd give you a different answer and say Stones, though. Start Kepa or Steele? I'd go for Steele. Is it a bad idea to captain Matoma, though I've got Isak? He's a good shout, and you can consider him, of course, because even if you back Brighton to lose both games or not win either, Matoma can still do well. But based on recent form and the stats, and also just the eye test, which is the most important for me, I think Isak is probably the one to captain. Start Grealish or Stones? From those 2, probably Stones, but it's almost 50-50 too. What to do with Tony? I'd probably keep if you can. I think he's going to score against West Ham. That's just a personal prediction. Raya and March out for Iverson and Max 6 for a -4. It's kind of interesting seeing people always refer to McAllister as Max 6 or Max 10, which is quite intriguing. But yeah, I think it is decent. The thing is, though, I'm guessing Raya, yeah, you just said it there, need to sell goalkeeper for funds. I don't like that too much, to be fair, and Iverson, if you're going to start him as well, I'd say no. And you might have some decent cover on the bench, like a Trent, a Shaw. I think that's enough, so I'd probably say no. Would you start Steele over Edison? Yes, I probably would. Start Estupinian or Shaw? I'm going for Estupinian, and simply because he has a double. I think Shaw has a better chance of a clean sheet, but one game compared to two, I'm most likely going to favour the double game weeker there. Willock and Trent or Willock and Dallo chasing rank? I'd go for Trent over Dallo. Is Odegaard a good transfer? Yes, I think so. And I'd love to have an Arsenal midfielder for the last 3 game weeks, especially for that game against Wolves. Captain Haaland or Isak or Tony? Isak. Matt's Collectibles says, what did you think of Pope, Trippier, Stupinian, Shaw, Trent, Odegaard, Matoma, McAllister, Isak, Haaland, Kane? Free transfer used. I think it's really good, and I like Odegaard. I think that's a nice, I want to say differential, but not many people are starting him this week. So I like that. Also, your defence, good chance of clean sheets there for Trippier and Shaw. Yeah, I don't really see too much wrong with this. And you've also got Haaland and Kane. Yeah, I think that should be very, very solid. I have no issues with that whatsoever. Yeah, we answered this already, K-Mag. I'd bench Grealish, personally. Isak or Wilson? I'd go for Isak. Start Mahrez? Yeah, but it also depends who you're benching. That's always going to be the caveat. Start Pope or Steele? Pope, definitely. Welcome, Dave. Thank you very much. I'm doing well. And what about you? March to McAllister and Watkins to Isak -4? Yes, I would do it. Ian C says, do you think a -4 hit is worth it for Henry to Botman, benches Henry, Castagna, Andreas? Otherwise, we'll be playing Henry, Rashford. Yeah, I think the -4 hit is just about worth it, but with Botman, you probably don't want to start him in either Gimmick 37 or 38, and you may even want to bring in a City defender next week, so it's quite a difficult one, but for this week only, I think the -4 hit is worth it. Why Shaw over Grealish? Because I don't think Grealish starts, and that's just a personal prediction. It's not, anything set in stone. I don't have any leaks. I don't have any contacts with City. And, with Pep Guardiola, it's so difficult to, second guess him. But I don't think Grealish is going to start, and at least there is a doubt that he is anyway, and that's enough to put me off. And with Luke Shaw, I think he's got a good chance of a clean sheet. Ideally, I would start him this week, but unfortunately, I've got so many benching headaches myself, and I'm quite happy to just go with this, but I would probably go for that. Does Mahrez start? What do we think? I think so, but as I said earlier, it would not surprise me if he was rested, so to speak, or he doesn't get the start from the get-go in order to start against Real Madrid. That would not surprise me. Why not keep Rashford in your starting 11 anyway? Because I'm looking at my team, and who am I going to bench? Estupinian maybe is the most likely. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Bruno Fernandes, but yeah, I think it's just a big risk, to be fair. March to Caicedo for free or for McAllister -4? I will not get Caicedo in. I don't think it's a good FPL option. I'd rather do the -4 to McAllister. Differential captaincy shout if Wilson is benched. Differential captaincy shout. I'm not sure about the exact figures, but McAllister could be one. Matoma. I think Insusa could be a shout. I'm not sure if I captain him, but if you're looking for differentials, these are the ones. And to be honest, I think from the sensible picks, so to speak, or the really reliable players over the years, I think Salah. I think Salah's a great captaincy option this week. Thank you, Richmar. I appreciate that. Grealish out for Odegaard? I think so. The only downside to that is that Grealish has a double next week. But I think Odegaard should outscore him in the last 3 game weeks. Start Mings or Dunk? I'd go for Dunk there, midnight. Yeah, definitely Dunk. RL1D82 says Botman, Watkins and Solanke out. Shaw, Isak and Wilson in. Costa -8. Yes, I'm guessing Botman to Isak is because, you need that extra Newcastle player. So yeah, if that's the case, I would do it. I think it's worth it. My captain will be Isak/Wilson. I've got it on Watkins right now because he's the one I'm going to sell. I'm not going to captain Watkins. No, he's not absolutely essential this week. Maybe next week in 37, but not in 36. Darwin to Wilson, Trent in the midfield, by the way. Yeah, I'd probably do that. I think Darwin has a decent chance of hauling against Leicester if he starts, but I think Wilson will outscore him by a good amount, so it is worth it. Tony or Watkins for Isak? I'd rather sell Watkins to Isak. I think both Tony and Watkins could score this week, but the one I'd rather keep at the moment, at least, who do I think will score more points this week is probably Tony. No, I would not take it for that, Pedro. Is there any chance that Isak and Wilson start for Newcastle? Yeah. I don't think both of them start at the same time, but of course they both can. It happened against Arsenal for the first time. Didn't really pan out too well, but they're facing one of the best teams in the league, so it's a bit difficult, or to compare that to Leeds. So yeah, let's wait and see. Solanke or Eze for Rashford? It would be Eze, but yeah, I wouldn't sell Rashford if you can. Why captain Watkins? I just covered that. I'm not going to captain him. Thoughts on Kane this week? Start over Shaw? Yeah, I would never bench Kane, to be honest. It has to be a really rare circumstance. I don't think I'd ever bench Kane. So as much as I think Shaw keeps a clean sheet, I would not bench Kane. Watkins' price fell over overnight. Bit unlucky there. To be honest, I'm not really that bothered. It doesn't price me out of future moves. So yeah, I'm not that bothered about that. What was your UCL semi-final prediction? I'll see the lineups and then, make obviously a conclusive judgment. But right now, I give Man City the edge. And from the beginning of the season, I said Real Madrid to win it again. But it just has this feeling of that this is Man City's year. The treble is very likely for them. So yeah, I'd probably give them the edge. I think in the first game, it was neck and neck. It was, I think 1-1 was a fair result. But going to the Etihad, where Man City are formidable, it's really difficult to see past them winning. But let's wait and see. Hopefully, Madrid have a nice surprise. Eze or Martinelli for Rashford? Martinelli, but I would not sell Rashford, to be fair. Best Rashford replacements? I have to insist, if you can, don't sell Rashford, but if you are just hell-bent on selling him, Mitoma, McAllister are the standouts this week to replace him. You're also looking at the likes of Salah, Bruno Fernandes as well. Apart from those four, there's not many other midfielders I go to apart from an Arsenal midfielder like Odegaard and Martinelli. So one of those, I think, will do the job for you, but not too keen on the rest, even an Eze or Zaha. Best replacement for March, 5.3 million. 5.3 million and below, you don't really have much to, work with there. So if we have a quick look here through the prices, I'm not mistaken, I think we can get a decent option, but nothing too spectacular. 5.3 million and below. Yeah, I'd probably be looking at Willock from those if you've got a Newcastle slot available. Anything else? Jacob Murphy, but yeah, for me, probably Joe Willock. I think he's the one. Not really too keen on the rest. Yeah, McAllister, Mitoma obviously a bit above that price threshold, so can't afford them. And obviously Gross is also a little bit beyond your scope. Then yeah, it has to be Willock for me. All right, let's go through a few different screens before we go back to your questions. We've been answering different topics and covering different questions for the past 37 minutes. So let's now go through something else. Here is the fixture ticker for the last 3 game weeks of the season. Man United remain top with that double game week in 37 and some good fixtures either side of it. Brighton, Newcastle, Crystal Palace and Chelsea complete the top 5 with the title contenders Man City and Arsenal just behind them. In terms of those at the bottom, so maybe teams you want to avoid, they include Nottingham Forest, Wolves, Brentford, Leicester and Aston Villa in the bottom 5. The fixtures aren't too bad actually for a lot of them, but still at the bottom here. And you've got some really good fixtures at the top end of the table. In terms of predicted points, Isak is top with Trippier, Wilson, Haaland and Joelinton completing the top 5. And then you've got Willock, McAllister, Pope, Fabian Schär and Mitoma. So as you can see, Newcastle are heavily favoured this week, with Brighton being the second most favoured with a double game week. And you've always got Haaland in there because we all know what he can do. In terms of price rises, I'll probably refresh this and see if anything's changed. So yeah, Wilson, Isak are about to go up, and trust me, there's going to be even more transfer activity, especially towards the last 15-20 minutes before the deadline. If we get confirmation of a leaked lineup, then yeah, just expect Wilson and Isak to go up in price tonight, basically. We've also got Odegaard, Estupiñán and Mitoma also on the periphery of going up. In terms of those going down, Rashford, Toney, March, Grealish, Veltman, and then yeah, some other players that won't be of much interest in FPL. But with Rashford, I've said this before, even if he's going to go down in price tonight, I would not sell him if you can, because you probably want him back for Game Week 37, assuming he recovers in time and is fit. In terms of the last thing we want to look at before going back to my team and your questions is Isak versus Wilson. We have covered this before. These are their stats since Game Week 17, so when the World Cup ended and we came back to the Premier League on Boxing Day Isak 15 games, Wilson 16. As you can see though, Wilson has more goal contributions, 1 more goal and assist respectively. In terms of shots, they're both exactly the same, 2 more on target for Wilson. In terms of shots in the box, Isak has 1 more. XG is very, very close, identical, but Wilson once again leads. Expected assist though, Isak is slightly better. Big chances, Wilson has 13 compared to Isak's 8. Both of them have 2 big chances created each. And then key passes, Isak is slightly better, but it's also worth mentioning that a lot of these games, yeah, I know Wilson recently has been on the bench, but since Game Week 17, Isak was just coming back from an injury. I think maybe around Game Week 24 or 5 is when he started games. So that also plays a part. Isak has fewer minutes when you look at these stats, but it's really, really close. And if you also look, I'd say in the last 5 or 6 game weeks, you know, I think it's going to be even closer to the side. But I still give Isak the slight edge. I think he will be on penalties over Wilson, also for bonus points and also for expected minutes. I would also give Isak the edge on both fronts. The big issue for both, I think, is can they stay fit? I think Wilson generally is more injury prone, but Isak has suffered from a few injuries this season as well. But let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Who are you going for? Ideally, if you're in a position to get both, even for a -4 hit, I would do it. The problem is if you need to take a -8 hit or get rid of a Trippier, that's where things get a bit more difficult, I think. Odegaard losing Rashford or Estupinian who has back-to-back doubles? Odegaard or Estupinian? Is that the question? So who would I rather start this week? Probably Estupinian simply for the double, but it's quite a close one. Will Alvarez start this week? Similar to Mahrez, it's really, really close. I think Alvarez doesn't, actually. So my personal prediction is that Mahrez and Foden start on the wings with Haaland up front. And I think Alvarez might be saved for the Champions League. But if he isn't, then you're probably quite confident that it will be Mahrez instead, who will then be benched against Everton and then start against Real Madrid. I think that's the key. One of Alvarez or Mahrez will be saved for that Man City Madrid game in the Champions League semi-final. Really close one, but I personally don't think Alvarez starts against Everton. Not really on either. If I had to pick one, it's probably Barcelona, simply because of their history of Argentines, obviously with Lionel Messi, and I think they play better football. But you can obviously level some criticisms at both. Best replacement for Watkins and March. Best replacement I think for Watkins, it's Isak. And Wilson would be the second best. And as for March, you're probably looking at McAllister, Matoma. Would you get rid of Ake for funds? For free, yes, potentially, but it also depends what you're going to do with those funds in the future too. Morning, Dylan, would you start Diaz or Estupinian? I'd go for Estupinian there. Odegaard or Mac 10? McAllister this week, yeah. Simply for the double. If it was literally one game, this straight shootout between Arsenal and Brighton, I would give Odegaard the edge, but that extra fixture puts it in McAllister's favour, also on penalties. Start 2 of Grealish, Shaw and Estupinian. Shaw and Estupinian. Start Botman or Dallas as JP. I'd go for Botman. Adam Jardine says, should I sell Jota or Watkins this week for a Newcastle forward? I'd rather sell Jota actually and keep Watkins. Yeah, I think transferring out both from -4 and going to Wilson and Isak is completely fine, and actually I'd recommend it, but if you're sticking to one, it'd be Jota out for Isak. Drop Shaw for Darmian? Oh, for Darwin, sorry. I'd start Shaw personally, but it's not a bad shout. How about Eze? Good differential, I think, for this week. So yeah, I like that. Same with Zaha and Elise. I'm not really that against it. Unaware of the Rashford situation, what are the chances you think he plays? Well, he's currently at 25% according to FPL. So what Ten Hag said yesterday is that he is a big doubt, and that they're going to wait and see. But it's literally a huge, huge doubt that he's going to start tomorrow. So my guess is he's not going to play at all. He's not going to be on the squad, you know, not even on the bench. And it might be a case of he either starts or doesn't play at all. So I think for a lot of you, it might be worth just starting him. And I'm even tempted to do the same, but my personal prediction is that he's not going to play at all. And usually I'm a bit kind of, let's say, how do I say this? I kind of doubt and I'm cynical about comments by a United manager, especially Ten Hag, about a player's fitness, but I genuinely believe him this time. An Arsenal punt for the final 2 games actually looks quite nice. Yeah, I think that's decent. Jesus has been in good goal-scoring form. He's obviously capable of missing some big chances. Now, if I'm looking at Arsenal players to buy, for me it's either Odegaard or Martinelli. I think they're the 2 top options, but Of course, in the midfield, you've got more choices in general, so it might be better for you to make a forward transfer like you just said. What do you think about Gibbs White this week? I mean, he's been really impressive recently, so I don't mind him at all. Even against Arsenal in 37, I think he's a good option too, so it's a decent shout. He's not my favourite because Palace midfielders look better. You're looking at Man City midfielders, Rashford when he's fit, Bruno Fernandes, Mohamed Salah, Brighton midfielders, etc. But I think it's definitely worth a shout. Got both Wilson and Isak, waiting for Leaks to decide captaincy. Yeah, I think that's completely standard. The way I see it really is that even if Wilson starts in the first game, that doesn't mean he's going to start the second game. And in either case, with both Isak, that's a new one, Isak and Wilson, I don't see either starting the next 3 games out of 3, including Game Week 37 against Leicester. But I think Isak is more likely to get more starts from now until the end of the season. And despite the possibility of playing both at the same time, it didn't really work out against Arsenal, and I know it's a different kettle of fish, but I generally favour Isak basically, and the only reason I'd get Wilson in is if we get confirmation he starts and Isak is going to be on the bench against Leeds. So yeah, Isak is my preference overall. Start 2 says Nolly. Yeah, Nolly. Start 2, White, Estupinian, Stones and Grealish. I would go for Estupinian and Stones from those. Tony out for Isak. Yeah, I think that's sensible. I think Tony will probably score against West Ham, but Isak should still outscore him. I'm fighting against sleep. 3:45 a.m. here. Oof. Waiting for Newcastle early news. Yeah, I was on holiday recently. There was a 4-hour difference. So literally, if I wanted to do one of these streams on the Saturday, I would have to basically wake up at 4 a.m. or something and stream from 5 a.m. And the deadline basically was at 7. It's not the worst. You probably have a worse situation in your case, but it just goes to show, I think those that maybe live outside the UK are very unfortunate sometimes, and the game is very UK-centric, so I do feel for you. And that's where the whole debate about whether the deadline should be at kickoff, that might be a way of helping those internationally, so I do feel for you there. Try to stay awake if you can, but of course, if you can't, then that's completely fair enough, and either way, you'd expect Isak and Wilson to both do well this week anyway. Dylan, start Steele or Raya, says Punjabi. Last game it got burnt with Steele. I still go for Steele. He's got a double game week, and it's not like Raya's guaranteed to get a clean sheet anyway. I think what could really go in Raya's favour is if West Ham rotate heavily in preparation for the second leg against AZ Alkmaar. So, yeah, I'd still go for Steele, though. Do we think Kepa or Raya get more save points? It's a good question. I think generally Raya's the one you'd back for more saves and bonus points. The reason why I'm going for Kepa is for clean sheet probability, and Raya hasn't kept a single home clean sheet since Game Week 22, so we're looking all the way back to February, whilst Kepa's got a few in that time, I believe, and also he got 6 points against Brighton despite conceding twice. Brighton or Newcastle have a better fixture in Game Week 38? In Game Week 38, interesting question. Close one. I think, yeah, it's difficult because Chelsea away isn't really seen as difficult nowadays, but I still think Chelsea could put up a decent fight there. I don't know. I think it's neck and neck. Aston Villa, of course, have been really good since December. I'd probably say Newcastle just about, but really, maybe I'm just being disrespectful. I'd probably say Newcastle against Chelsea away. Which two of these players should I start? Stones, Wan-Bissaka or Stupinian? I'd probably go for Wan-Bissaka and Stupinian. The only issue is if Wan-Bissaka's benched, because it's still possible. You've got the likes of Malacia and Dalot as well. If Varane gets straight into the starting 11, there's still a possibility of Varane and Lindelof together as centre-back, Luke Shaw left-back, and then there's basically Wan-Bissaka versus Dalot in a straight shootout for right-back. But I would start him just in case. Odegaard and Mahrez in for Rashford and Grealish. Thoughts, says Mickey. I like that. The only big problem I have is the fact that Rashford could be back for 37 and you'd want to get him back in. But Odegaard and Mahrez this week look fantastic. I think Odegaard is nailed on. We know that. Mahrez, there is a bit of a doubt because he might be rested or saved for the Champions League semi-final. I think that's a possibility. I think one of him or Alvarez could be the surprise inclusion to defeat Madrid in the second leg. But yeah, I think it's worth it. It's worth a punt. Best City midfielder, De Bruyne overall. For this week, it's probably between Mahrez and Foden. Start Alisson or De Gea? De Gea. Better chance for a clean sheet. I don't think Grealish starts, but I'm not completely sure on that. Should I transfer Rashford for Mahrez or free transfer or just play Trent? Just play Trent, in my opinion. It's completely up to you. I know you're doing really well this season, but I'd probably just play Trent. Who to replace from within my team? For Rashford, Grealish, Shaw, or Akanji? I'd go for Shaw. Should I wildcard this week or wait? I mean, I don't know how long you want to wait, to be fair, because we've literally got 3 game weeks of the season, and I always say this with the wildcard, it's not just a 1-week thing, it's, you know, setting your team up for 3, 4, even 5+ game weeks. I'd use it now, to be honest. It just depends on your team situation, but probably now. Start 2, Botman, McAllister, Salah, and Kane. Benching one of Salah or Kane is absolutely ridiculous, I think. From those lot, I'd probably be most inclined to bench Botman, which sounds crazy. He's got a double. But yeah, I'm probably starting them McAllister and Salah. Don't bench Kane, though, really. It's just not worth it. You must have some really good players in the starting 11. McAllister or Gross for March? McAllister. I don't think Gross starts in the midfield. I think he'll be at the right back against Arsenal. Might even be the case as well against Newcastle. So, yeah, McAllister. At the moment, Odegaard, but Martinelli has been fantastic since February. I'd go for Odegaard there. I'd favour the attacker, but it's really close. Start one of Rashford, Grealish, or Shaw. Probably Rashford just in case, but I'd put Shaw above Grealish. Enciso in for a -4 or play Ruben Dias? Good question. I'd probably just play Ruben Dias. Do you think Foden starts today? Yes. It's so difficult to second-guess Pep. I don't think Alvarez starts. So really my conundrum is one of Alvarez or Mahrez might be benched here and they're safe for the Champions League semi-final. And I'm very conflicted about that. Should I free hit now or next game week? Not sure how your team is set up this week, because if you've got a really good starting 11, you've got either Salah or Kane, you've got Haaland, you've got triple ups in Brighton and Newcastle that you're happy with, then maybe you're looking at game week 37 to free hit. To be honest, you can even make a case for game week 38 to use your chip there, because you can go a bit different, go for some different punts and target teams and players that still have something to play for. Start Watkins or Grealish? Probably Watkins. I think he's going to score. Martinelli, Shaw, and Tony start 2. I would go for Martinelli and Tony. Who would you start, Edison or Raya? I would go for probably Raya still. Will Rashford start? I don't think so. Welcome, Lager. Good to see you. Hope you're having a great week so far. It's been a disaster for my team after my free hit in 32 dropped from 8k to 37k. Wow. Hopefully this week can make a change. At least you're still in a good rank looking at the positives. But yeah, sometimes, you know, maybe when a chip doesn't go right, you kind of notice a bit of a downward trend. So yeah, I do feel for you there. But yeah, good luck to you as well. And hopefully you can kick things up a bit and let me know if you've got any dilemmas. Yeah, I think Edison starts, but it's not guaranteed. Wilson or Kane? Wilson this week. Wilson or Trippier captain? I'd go for Callum Wilson. Bench Darwin or Gakpo? I'd rather bench Darwin from those two. Yeah, I think that's a decent transfer, but once again, I'm not absolutely sure if Mahrez starts. Martinelli, Shaw, and Tony, we've covered that toast. Sell Watkins or Jesus for Wilson, says Tahir. I'd rather sell... So this week, I think Watkins outscores Jesus, but over the next 3 game weeks, I think Jesus probably has the edge for the fixtures. So... really just depends. I'd probably say Watkins out to Wilson. But, you know, if you've got, for example, 2 free transfers and then you've got 2 next week as well, then in that case, maybe I'd rather sell Jesus and then you can always bring him back in. So, you know what? I'm going to say sell Jesus and keep Watkins, which might sound a bit crazy. Start Stupinian with a difficult double or Tony. That's really close. You know what? I'd probably go for Tony there, which is risky, but I think it might be worth the risk. Stones or Shaw, who to start? Luke Shaw for me. Gakpo for Willian? Yeah, I think that's a decent shout. I mean, Gakpo's not at the top of my agenda, but he's a decent midfielder to get as well. Fernandes, Mahrez, or McAllister long term? For me, it's between McAllister and Fernandes, and I'm probably looking at... probably Fernandes for me, if you can afford him. Who would you start between Shaw and Odegaard? Odegaard. Is Isak the best captaincy option this week? I think so. No Newcastle news so far. If we get a league lineup, it would be 15-20 minutes before the deadline. So in an hour's time, basically. Would you go for Willock or Eze? This week, I'd rather go for... I mean, Willock has the double. and he's a decent shout, but I have a better feeling about Eze over the next 3, so I'd go for him. Start Rashford or Dalot. Rashford just in case, and Dalot can always come on if needed. Hill Alcobi says start Haaland, Pinnock instead of Saka and Ciso, and Mings for Saka and Ciso. I'd start Haaland regardless, to be fair. Yeah, and Mings for Saka and Ciso. No, I will not start Mings for Saka and Ciso. Bench both Rashford, Stones, or start Isak, Tony. Bring Isak for -4. Yeah, I'd probably bring in Isak for -4, and I'd start Isak and Tony. I think that's spot on. Worth doing Rashford to McAllister if I only have Mitoma as a Brighton player. Yeah, I think it's worth it. Obviously, you might want Rashford back in Game Week 37. As long as you have an easy route back, and you might even just sell McAllister again, then fair enough. I think it's worth it. No Rashford news apart from what we talked about earlier. You know, what Ten Hag said yesterday. He's a huge doubt for the game against Wolves. The way I see it, he either starts or doesn't play at all. I don't see him on the bench. Let's wait and see. I'd go for Shaw there over Stones, Mohamed. De Gea / Raya got Shaw playing this week. I'd go for De Gea and just go all in on Man United clean sheet. That's the way I'd play it. Welcome, Gary. Saving a transfer next week. 3 points off top of mini league at work. Planning a big finish. Great tips for the season. And smash the like, people. Thank you, Gary, for the shout out. And as he says, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe for you. It really helps us out in the algorithm. And 3 points off in the mini league battle is incredible with only 3 game weeks left. Still plenty of opportunities for you to get the edge. And if you've got some differences already in your squad and you're going for a different captain, even better, potentially. Is it good to have Dalot on the team? Will he start? He's not guaranteed to start. As I discussed earlier, with Varane coming back, if he's going to be straight back into the starting 11, which I don't think will happen, but if he were to be, you've got him and probably Lindelof centre-back, then you've got Luke Shaw left-back, and then it's between Wan-Bissaka and Dalot as the right-back. But I don't think Ten Hag will rush him. I think Varane will be saved for that FA Cup final, so there's no need to really risk him. But Dalot's not guaranteed to start. He's a decent player to start for your team because I think United have a good chance of a clean sheet, but you just have to hope he's not on the bench and comes on as a sub. Should I save Anthony for upcoming Double Gameweek 37? I'd rather bring in McAllister. Anthony's been better recently. He's got some decent underlying numbers too, but I don't think he's someone I'd really target. Let's go back to my team, by the way, since I've been on this for a long time, but you've seen the comparison between Isak and Wilson. And just for those of you that might be new to the live chat and to the stream, basically I've made 1 free transfer so far and I've got in McAllister for March. I think that Rashford news has pretty much pushed me over the edge. The second transfer I'm looking to make is Watkins out for Isak / Wilson, depending on any news we may get in just under an hour's time, and my preference overall is with Isak, so let's wait and see if we get any confirmation. So Nolly says, do you think Arsenal keeping a clean sheet? Not this week. I think Forest and Wolves is, one of those games is where Arsenal should keep a clean sheet, but I don't see it against Brighton. And to be fair, looking ahead to that game against Forest, I think Forest will probably score and make things difficult for the Gunners. Bench Rashford for Haaland. Yes, I would do that anyway. Thoughts on Grealish and Watkins out, Alvarez and Willock in? Not a bad shout. Those are good transfers, actually. The reason why I'd probably say no is because I think Watkins has a good chance of scoring, and with Alvarez, I'm not absolutely sure if he starts. So I'd probably hold off. If anything, do Grealish out to Willock, and that's the way I'd go about it. I would start Shaw over Van Dijk there, believe. Grealish and Watkins out for Morris and Alvarez Mitrovic. The thing is Mitrovic guaranteed to start now? Carlos Vinicius is in good form, scoring in his last 2 home games. That's not guaranteed, and I actually would rather have Watkins anyway. So a bit similar to what I just said now, I'd probably maybe do Grealish to Mahrez, if anything, and that's it. But I think both Mahrez and Alvarez, it's a good shout, but as I said earlier, I have a feeling one of them could be safe for the Champions League semi-final. I think so. My original prediction was for Chelsea to lose to Bournemouth and beat Nottingham Forest, so it might be the other way around now, but Forest still have the worst away record in the Premier League this season. Lager says, would it be better to do Grealish to McAllister then? I'd say so, Lager. Of course, it could backfire, but Rashford is generally the better FPL option, and it's all just a question of, is he fit in 37? Kepa or Raya? I'm currently going for Kepa, but it's almost neck and neck, and I actually put a poll out on my channel, and most people went for Raya. I will check that again maybe in a second if I can. Happy Human says, should I start Johnston or Edison? I would probably go for Johnston this week, even though Bournemouth is still a decent team and can score goals. Should I bring in Salah for Fernandes? No, because Fernandes is a good option for 37. Would you start Wan-Bissaka over Stupinian? No, I wouldn't. Which two to start between Gakpo, Odegaard, and Mahrez? Probably Odegaard and Mahrez. Thoughts on Elise? Good shout for this week. Very good differentials. I do prefer Eze and Zaha a little bit more potentially, but it's really close between all three, and it's a good shout. Keep in mind it would be from -4 hits as Lager. Yeah, that is the big question. From -4 hit, I think I'd still do it. Start Raya or Edison? Probably Raya still. March to McAllister for a -4. Yep, I think it's worth for Abdullah. Not just for this week, but also 37. That Southampton fixture. A decent fixture to run off the season in 38 against Aston Villa too. Varmi Tateri says, need to fund March to Matoma, short of Dallo, or downgrade Kepa Edison. I'd rather downgrade one of your keepers, and looking at the remaining fixtures, I'd rather downgrade Kepa. The only issue I could see there is if Edison is suddenly dropped to the bench for Ortega. And that could be a big problem. But on paper, I think downgrading Kepa and then funding that move, from March to Matoma that way is probably the way to go. Yeah, I like it. As I just said, I think a Crystal Palace midfielder could be a great differential this week. I don't mind it at all. Wilson or Salah? What's this for, though? Captaincy, bench? I mean, definitely don't bench either, if that's the case. But for the captaincy, I'd rather go for Wilson, just about. Got both of Wilson and Isak, but I'm captaining Wilson. That's fair. He's got the better stats, and he's been really impressive recently. Watkins and Zinchenko out for Trippier and Isak? Yes, I would do that. Bench or sell Rashford? Bench, if you can. Eddie says, hi Dylan, which one should I captain? Completely up to you, but from those three, I'd probably go for Matoma. Are you benching Shaw? Unfortunately, I probably will. I'm even tempted to bench Bruno Fernandes for Shaw and just rely on a 1-0 Man United or a 0-0. But basically, Fernandes isn't involved in any goals. Liverpool players to get if I can't afford Salah or Trent? Probably Gakpo. Yeah, I think Gakpo is probably one of the best alternatives. Really with Trent, for me, when you're looking at Liverpool defensively, it's Trent or nothing, and it's simply for his attacking threat. What should I do with KDB? It's difficult, but I wouldn't even be against benching him this week and then having him for Double Gameweek 37. Would you start Wan-Bissaka over Stupinian? No, I wouldn't. Start Stupinian or Watkins, says Sydney. I would start Stupinian. Jason says, is Ake worth keeping, or do I sell for Botman and get McAllister? I'd sell for Botman if you can. If it's for a -4 hit, then it is a bit debatable, and it also depends on which players you have on your bench. If you've got Shaw or Trent, just start them and don't get Botman. De Gea or Kepa? David De Gea this week for sure. Abia Sul says, currently starting Kepa, Shaw, Trent, Trippier, Botman, Estupinian, Salah, McAllister, Matoma, Isak and Haaland, bench, Raya, Grealish, Rashford and Greenwood. Thoughts? Did Watkins to Isak, one free transfer left? Yeah, like a lot of us, you've got a lot of benching headaches. And any further transfers would just make that even more difficult. I don't think you need to make another transfer, to be fair. I'd probably roll and just wait and see what extra information you'll have for Gameweek 37 and which other Man City players you could also get in. So yeah, I'd roll. Start Shaw or Estupinian? I'm going for Estupinian. I think United have a better chance of a clean sheet, but 2 games is still better than 1 for me, and Estupinian has more attacking threat recently. Who will be top 3-4 in your table in your prediction? Well, I mean, we can all agree that Man City, unless they bottle it really, they're going to win the league title. Arsenal, kind of speaks for itself. They're guaranteed second anyway. So 3rd and 4th, you're probably looking at Newcastle and Man United. I think the fixtures are good enough for both of them to see it through, and Liverpool will be 5th. March for McAllister -4. Yes, I think it's worth it. Abrams says, hey Dylan, how are you? Edison or Johnston? I'd go for Johnston, and hopefully you're doing well. Predict Newcastle attack effective ownership. I mean, it should be over 100%. I don't think it will be... I could be wrong about this. I don't think it'll be over 200%, but I'd say, around 150%, something like that, at least for Isak. Captaincy poll, check it out on my channel. I've already got one out there, which should help you out. Isak did win that quite comprehensively. Once again, NMC, I'd start De Gea. Start Tony or Rashford, says Richard. I would start Tony. We could see minutes points from Estupinian, which is why I'm considering starting Shaw over him. Yeah, that's fair. And also with the fixtures, you don't see a clean sheet there for Brighton. Sell Fernandes or Rashford or Shaw to De Gea? I wouldn't sell any of them, to be fair. I think De Gea is a really good goalkeeper to have, probably the best for the last 3 game weeks, but it's not worth selling one of those players, in my opinion, unless we had confirmation Rashford was out for the rest of the season, but we only know he's a big doubt for this week. Captain, it would be Isak or Wilson for me. Thank you, Morris, for the super chat. KDB to Mo, Hokey Cokey from -4 this week, worried. Oof, I mean, it could tremendously backfire either way, whether you go for it or you don't go for it. My gut feeling is that it would be worth taking a punt on Salah this week, but I think with a -4 as well, I think the main appeal is also having them for the next few weeks as well. And if you're going to bring KDB back in next week, then I probably would hold. And you've always got maybe a Shaw or a Trent to come in and fill in and do a really good job for you. So, yeah, whilst I think Salah could do well this week, it's not a guarantee with him being away from home. And I'd probably say no, because you're doing a hokey-cokey, as you put it. Trippier or Isak only have 1 Newcastle space left. Isak for me at this moment in time. Would you bench Trent, Alvarez, or Buonanotte? Probably Buonanotte, because he's not guaranteed to start both games. It could be Enciso on the right, Mitoma on the left, McAllister Justin behind Ferguson. So, yeah, I'd probably go for Trent and Alvarez over Buonanotte. Wilson or Isak for Jota and Ben Mee to Diaz or Stones? Which duo is better? I'd rather go for Isak, but let's wait and see if we get any league lineup. And as for Ben Mee to Diaz or Stones, Stones is my slight preference, but Diaz is obviously a bit more nailed on in general. So, yeah, Stones and Isak is my current preference. Thank you, Abdullah. I appreciate that. Thanks, mate, for the hard work. You deserve more subs, bro. Keep up the good work, sir. Cheers, man. Love your content. I appreciate the kind words, and thank you very much for always tuning in. And if you've got any questions or comments, be sure to let me know. Thank you very much. Start Stupinian or Grealish? I'd go for Stupinian. Kagawa says Wilson or Isak for Jota. Yeah, we just covered that, mate. So if you got it. Eze as a March replacement. Yeah, as a 1 week punt, I don't mind it at all. And to be fair, Palace have some good fixtures to round off the season. You've also got Elise and Zaha to consider. And Eze is maybe my favourite. It's between him and Zaha. So yeah, that's a pretty good shout. May Man United keep Rashford away, ready for the FA Cup final? Yeah, I think that is also going to be in the back of their minds. They've got the fixtures to secure top 4, I think. 2 home games where they've been very strong. You know, they rarely concede. Yeah, they don't really need too many results. Even just 1 win could be enough. Yeah, I think Rashford might not be risked. If there's any chance of an injury or aggravating his injury, they're not going to risk him, for sure. Sell De Bruyne for Mac 10? Yes, I think so. If it's for free, then yeah. And you probably want to get De Bruyne back next week, but do you think Alvarez starts? My gut feeling is that he doesn't. For me, it's between him and Mahrez. You know, one of them is going to be safe for the Champions League semi-final, and that could have a bearing on, you know, their starting 11 against Everton, of course. Not FPL related, but do you think the league will be decided on the last game week? No. The reason why is because Man City basically need to drop points before that to, you know, take it down to the wire. I think even a draw. So if Man City draw one of these next few games, you know, that's already enough, basically. If they draw and win the rest heading into Game Week 38, that's already enough. They need to basically lose, and I'm just not so sure if that's going to happen. Yeah, I think it'll be decided before then. Hopefully not. Hopefully it goes down to the wire, but not too sure. Gakpo start? Yes, I think so. Then again, though, with Gakpo, I have gotten it wrong on the odd occasion. Wilson or Isak for captain? I would prefer Isak. Trajan says Watkins to Enciso and Estupinian to Trent, or Watkins to Wilson and roll the other transfer. I think Watkins to Wilson and rolling the other transfer is the best way to go. Raphael says sell Grealish for Sancho. I wouldn't go for Sancho, honestly. I don't think it's worth it. I know Sancho scored a goal recently against Spurs, but I don't think he's a reliable pick in FPL. Mario says Estupinian, KDB, Shaw, Rashford start to bench to. Thank you very much for the super chat, mate. As always, I would start Estupinian and probably Luke Shaw, which sounds ridiculous, by the way. But I don't think Rashford starts. I mean, what you could do is, just in case, put Rashford in and then basically have Shaw and KDB on your bench. It sounds really crazy for me to basically rank KDB the lowest of those 4, but that's based on my prediction of KDB not starting and being safe for the Champions League. I think Everton could beat City, but do I think they will? No. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they can, but yeah, I still think City just have the momentum, and Everton will play differently compared to how they did against Brighton. Steele or Kepa, says Julian? Steele. Is Robertson to Trent a good transfer? Yes, I think it's worth it. Tempted to start White over Stupinian. The thing is, though, do you back White for a clean sheet against Brighton? I don't. I think it's worth starting Estupinian. If it was Shaw or Trent, I'd be like, fair enough. I think that's a really good shout. But White, I don't see it personally. I think Brighton will score. Watkins for Enciso for a -4. I'm chasing. It's not a bad shout. I think Enciso is a really good differential. I mentioned him to Wanja earlier. That could be great, but I actually think Watkins could score. And even keeping Watkins could be your differential. I know he's been a bit of a troll recently, but I think he's going to score against Spurs. So is it worth it? Yes, I think it's worth a punt, but it's also worth keeping Watkins. That's the thing. So it's really fine margins. And do you think Enciso outscores Watkins by 4 or more? I don't think so personally. That's just my gut feeling. Best Palace option, I think it's between Zaha and Eze. Really close though. Who do you think will replace Rashford in the actual team lineup? That's a great question. So I think Weghorst, what they could do again, Man United, is start Bruno on the left and then put Weghorst in behind Martial and then maybe have Bruno and basically have that front three alternating, and then you've got either Anthony or Sancho on the right. But yeah, I think what's more likely, as someone else rightly pointed out earlier, is having Sancho and Anthony on the wings and then having Martial up front and Bruno just in behind. So yeah, for me, it will probably be either Sancho or basically having a Weghorst or Martial coming in and then Bruno on the left. But for me, it'd be Sancho. Play 1, Rashford, Grealish, Stones. Rashford just in case, and then you probably have Stones just ahead of Grealish personally. I can't trust the captain. Captain who? Maybe I'm bugging out there. Is Matoma not good for captain? He's decent. You know, I think he's in the top 4 for sure, but I do back Newcastle a little bit more. Daryl says, hey Dylan, is getting an Arsenal mid a good idea? Yes, I think so. I have 2 Brian already, and who to captain, Salah or a double game week player? I think Salah's definitely worth considering for the captaincy, but I would probably go for a double game week player, especially if we get news Isak starts, and he's my preference. And as for Arsenal midfielder, Odegaard, then Martinelli looks like the best right now. Yeah, Ferguson's a decent shout. I think he'll start against Arsenal, but that's not a guarantee for him to also start against Newcastle, because you've also got Welbeck and Undav. I think there's a lot of competition there suddenly for the forward position. So yeah, I think with Ferguson, he gets 1 start in this double. Start De Gea or Pope? I would go for Nick Pope. Matoma or Rashford? Definitely Matoma this week. Watkins to Enciso for a -4. We just covered that, mate. If it was me personally, I wouldn't do it because I think Watkins scores. It's up to you. 2 Newcastle attackers or defenders? Attackers. We've covered this before. In the best free hit team, I put 2 Newcastle attackers and Trippier. Any Newcastle United team news? No, not at the moment. Like I said, if we were to get anything, it's probably going to be in half an hour or 40 minutes. I'll have a quick look and see if we have any confirmation of a time, but I don't think we will get anything. So let me have a quick look. Yeah, doesn't look like we're going to get anything at the moment, but let's wait and see. If there is anything, someone in the live chat will say, and I'll also have a look from time to time on Twitter. Ryan to Johnston, is it good? It's not a bad transfer, but I definitely wouldn't do it for a hit. And honestly, when I'm looking at the next few game weeks as well, even rolling is ideal because you have more information and more free transfers for 37 and 38. So I'd personally say no, but it's not a bad shout. Who should Newcastle sign in the summer? I think a right wing and left back are the biggest needs. Yeah, I mean, Dan Burn's done a good job this season, but I think he could be targeted. I think Newcastle need more competition in certain places, like the ones you mentioned. Almiron had a great start to the season, but has slowly tailed off, especially since the World Cup. Yeah, I think you're right there. They've got 2 really good strikers, and it's all just a question of staying fit. Dubravka is on loan from Man United. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one here. Maybe a backup goalkeeper for competition. I'd still say, I think depth is the next step for them. So obviously in the starting 11, I think the left back and right wing, you're right there. But it's all about depth now. I think a centre back. Anything else? I'd even say another midfielder, maybe an attacking one. So I could see Maddison, obviously, he's heavily linked to Newcastle. That's also something else they could be looking at. So I'd say a midfielder, a right wing, and a left back is the priority. Should I get Wilson or Willock? Wilson for me. Thank you, Yash, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Hey Dylan, best triple captain options in these last game weeks. Cheers. Thank you very much for that. I think this week it'd be between Isak and Wilson. Next week you're looking at Haaland or probably a Man United player like Bruno Fernandes / Rashford if he's fit. And in Gameweek 38, that's a bit more difficult. If I have a quick look at the fixtures once again. In Gameweek 38, even an Arsenal player against Wolves, I would not rule them out for the captaincy. So Martinelli or Odegaard. I think Haaland against Brentford is always a shout there. I think Salah against Southampton in Gameweek 38. But really, if I've got the triple captain, I'd be looking to use it now or in 37 in a double game week. So yeah, for me, a Newcastle player this week or Haaland next week is probably what I'm looking at. So thank you for that. No, Rashford's not 100% out, but he's a huge doubt, as Eric Ten Hag put it yesterday. Yeah, you could keep Salah. I think the main appeal of selling Salah is to get De Bruyne next week, and I am considering it. But this week, I'm happy to keep. Cylindra says Joelinton or Willock and Eze or Zaha. It would be Willock. That's my gut feeling. And as for Eze or Zaha, I'd probably go for Zaha. But Eze has been bare recently. Welcome, Jamie. Good to see you. Do you think Burn will start both games? Yes, I think he does. Keep Rashford or move to Odegaard. Bruno for a -8. I'm on a bench boost. I'd keep Rashford. I like the move to Odegaard and even Bruno, but you'd want Rashford back next week, and I think he'll be available. Ben Taylor says, hi Dylan, would you bring in Salah for either Rashford or Grealish for a hit, or just start them both? Have Bruno and Shaw on the bench? Great questions coming in. I'd maybe bring Salah in for a hit for Grealish, but to be honest, you could just start both, and you've got Bruno and Shaw on your bench. Yeah, I think in your case, Ben, I'd probably just roll, and you always have some good players on your bench to come in, so that's fine. 3 must-have players for this game week. I'd say Isak, a Brighton midfielder like Matoma, and maybe Trippier. I think those are the 3 must-haves. Ideally, you'd have both Newcastle forwards, but I can understand and appreciate that it's difficult to get both for a lot of people, including myself. Mahrez or Odegaard? Odegaard for me. And McAllister in for Rashford and March. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Once again, with Rashford, I think he'll be available in Gameweek 37. You might want him back by then. Raphael says, why is to put Rashford in and put in Shaw on the first bench, or play safe and put Shaw in? I think it's worth taking a risk and just putting Rashford in from the get-go. The way I see it, he either starts or doesn't play at all, so that's fairly sensible. Once again, Ashish, we haven't got anything yet. If we were to get news, it's probably going to be 15 minutes before the deadline, so we're looking at half an hour's time. Right now, it doesn't look like we're getting anything. I can't trust captaining Wilson. Yeah, that's fair. I said this earlier. If Wilson starts and Isak doesn't, I'd even be considering a different captaincy. So Mitoma, McAllister, or Trippier. So I do understand that. Johnston versus Steele, Dylan. I doubt that. I don't think Steele will get minus points. The reason why I did last week is because he conceded 5 and scored an own goal. If we put it into context, he can still get plenty of saves. He can save the odd penalty, which he showed against Forest. So yeah, I don't think he'll get negative points. I've got Watkins, March, Tony, and Rashford. Also Gakpo to come in if I keep March. What would you do? Yeah. Gakpo to come in if I keep March isn't really the worst thing in the world, but ideally I'd still probably sell to McAllister. Who to replace Botman or Trippier with to get a Newcastle attacker? I don't know what budget you're working with, but ideally I'd sell Botman and keep Trippier. And, you know, you could do Botman to Estupinian if you don't have him already. If not, because a lot of people do have him, then I'd probably be looking at... Yeah, I'm not sure which defenders you have, so let me know which defenders you have, Mohammed, and then I'll give you a final answer. Yeah, so at the moment, it doesn't look like we're getting anything. McAllister and Wilson over De Bruyne, Salah and Kane, right? I'd say so, but benching Salah and Kane doesn't sit right with me. Thank you, Ben Taylor. Always a pleasure. Get Mahrez or Martinelli? I'd rather get Martinelli at this moment in time, despite Mahrez having a double next week. Start one of Martinelli, Gakpo, Maddison, Martinelli. Hi, Gabriel Estupinian. Definitely Estupinian for me. Kata Ali says, take a -4 hit and bring in McAllister, Joelinton or Odegaard. I think from those 3, you have to go for McAllister. I'd actually rather go for Odegaard over Joelinton, just for the final 2 gimmicks as well. I've got Jota plus Haaland plus Isak. Would you replace Jota with Wilson for a -4? Yes, I would. Especially if we get news and confirmation that he's going to start. So let's wait and see about that. Thank you to everyone who's been tuning in. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this stream to well over 100 likes and then see where we can push on from there. And let's get ever closer towards 19,000 subscribers. I think we're just 200 or 300 away at this point. But yeah, let's keep on smashing the like button. We've got over 100 people watching and we are getting closer to 100 likes. So keep on smashing the like button and plugging away at that. We'll try to reach that goal by the end of the stream. Thank you, Ashish. I appreciate it. Jason asks, how do you think Arsenal will do in the Champions League next season? I think Arsenal have a good squad and they could, on paper go very far. But I think realistically, I could see Arsenal reaching the quarterfinals or the round of 16. It also depends on the draw and how lucky they are. They're going to probably be in pot 3 unless they win the Champions League, unless they win the Premier League this season, and then they'll be in pot 1. So that makes a huge difference. So I would not be surprised if they get the group of death from the get-go. But I'd say round of 16 or quarterfinals is quite realistic. Hi Dylan, who to start from Grealish and Dunk? Dunk for the double game week simply. If leaks say that Wilson starts instead of Isak, should I use my 1 free transfer to get Wilson in or roll it and hope Isak plays the second fixture? Yeah, that's the thing though. Selling Isak for Wilson, despite what you proposed there, Raphael, I don't think it's worth it. So would you sell Watkins or Tony this week? Out of those two, I'd rather sell Watkins. Despite the fact that I think both score. Nope, no Newcastle leaks. Like I said, if we get anything, it's probably going to be in half an hour. Botman, Trippier, Stupinian, Shaw, Mings, those are my defenders. Yeah, so looking at that, so selling Botman, I would probably go for... If you've got the budget, Alexander-Arnold's kind of easy one, but I'm guessing you don't have those funds. Maybe Stones. I think maybe a Man City defender, like Stones could be the one. Good preparation for Game Week 37 as well. You don't even need to start him this week. So, yeah, I'd say John Stones could be the one. Daryl says best captain. For me, it's going to be Isak. It's between him and Wilson, and I'd go for Isak right now. I really want to get Bobby next week for his last home game for Liverpool, plus last week, Southampton away. Yeah, that's a good shout, and I can understand that sentimentality, you could say. Yeah, I think Firmino should get a start, or at least a good kind of appearance off the bench. But then again, if Liverpool are fighting for the top 4, they're going to go for what they perceive as the strongest 11, so it all depends on that as well, maybe. Wilson or Isak? Isak for me. And no team used, once again. What do you think of Liverpool's chance of qualifying for the Champions League? I mean, Liverpool on a roll. You probably think it's a bit too late, the run they've been on, because United have 2 good home games, either side of their double. You'd probably give them the edge against Chelsea as well. And then you look at Newcastle, you'd expect both of those teams to see it through. So Liverpool have a chance, but I'd say it's about 10%, 20%. And that's more because United and Newcastle have the fixtures to finish it off. March to McAllister for -4, says Nicola. Yeah, simple answer. Play Johnston or De Gea. I'd go for David De Gea this week. Jasri says, hello Dylan. Do I bring in McAllister plus Willock in for March plus Andreas and bench Shaw and play Rashford just in case Rashford starts and hauls this game week? I think either kind of decision is fine. And maybe play Rashford in your case, since it looks like you're fearing that possibility. And I think that's completely fair. I'm even considering starting him just in case as well. So I'd probably go for the latter option there. Fadzil says the plan for this week is roll, and next week Bruno Shaw and 3.9 million goalkeeper in for March, Robertson and Pope. Now that Rashford is out, if I roll like my plan, I'd be playing with 10 men, weak bench. Yeah, I understand the dilemma there. In that case, I'd be a bit more open to selling Rashford this week and then maybe bringing him back next week. But yeah, I understand your conundrum there. And you've got some good plans for next week, but for this week, having 10 men could be a big disadvantage. Start Grealish or Shaw. Luke Shaw for me. I feel like the majority is going for 5 at the back. Yeah, I'm even quite open to that as well. And if I didn't get in McAllister, it would have been Shaw coming in basically for Luke Shaw, for Marcus Rashford, should I say. Yeah, Son's been in good form recently. And I think against the high-line Aston Villa, he could do extremely well. He actually scored a hat-trick last season, but completely different teams. Spurs had Antonio Conte, and Spurs were on a really good run towards the end of the season. And Aston Villa had Steven Gerrard, and now they have Unai Emery. So things have changed, but I think Heung-min Son could be really good this week. Start Grealish or Watkins. I'd go for Ollie Watkins, actually. Wilson over premium players for the captaincy, yes. And also, he's got a double. You can't ignore that. Would you rather start Shaw or Robertson? Luke Shaw. Which Newcastle midfielder is good this week? I'd probably say Willock or Joelinton in that order. We're getting a lot of these questions of Grealish or Shaw. I'd go for Shaw personally. We've covered that, Kagawa. Would you start with Martinelli or Salah to Rashford? probably Martinelli and Salah. If I had to pick one of those three, it'd be Salah. Elise and McAllister for a -4? Probably. I think Elise could do well, but McAllister's worth a -4. Imagine we're all talking about Isak and Wilson captaincy and Haaland scores 3 or 4. I hope that's not the case. The way I see the game going, I think it will be a bit tougher than maybe people expect against Everton. I think City will get the job done, but yeah, I also think Haaland's minutes could be managed for the Champions League. His fitness isn't an issue. He can play every 3 or 4 days, and he's more of a penalty box striker. You know, he's not, maybe like another striker who's up and down and, using the work rate, on the ball dribbling, and using a lot of energy. So, yeah, it's possible, but I'm quite happy to captain Isak or Wilson. Do I sell Rashford to bring in Isak or Wilson for -8, or do I keep him and see how it goes? The thing is, though, I'd highly recommend getting Isak and Wilson this week, and even for 37. So I'd probably sell and, make that move. The thing is, though, I was just wondering, do you not have another way? Do you not have Watkins, for example, or an Ivan Toney to sell to Isak or Wilson directly? That'd be my big question. Thoughts on Diaz? Yeah, Luis Diaz could be a shout as well. I do prefer Salah, of course, and maybe even Gakpo, but Diaz has been impressive. At least McAllister for a -4. Yes. Dalot to start? Potentially, but he's not guaranteed to start in Game Week 37, both games there, and also 38. I think he'll be benched in 1 or 2 of those. Thoughts on transferring Botman out to get Willock as a differential? Not a bad shout. For free, I would maybe consider it, and in your situation, since you really want a differential, I'd go ahead, but if it's for a hit, I don't think it's going to be worth it. If Wilson starts and Isak doesn't, I'm probably just going to be captaining Big Boy Erling. Fair enough. That's not a bad shout. Will Wilson start both games? No, I don't think so. Sell March on Watkins to McAllister and Alvarez for a -4. Yes. I mean, I do March to McAllister if you can, without, if you don't need the funds by doing Watkins to Alvarez and you can just do March to McAllister for free, I'd do it. And I would save the other one. Dr. Limbo says Solanke plus Trent to Wilson captain plus White -8 worth it. No, it's not worth it. I think I can understand why you're doing it because you might be looking to bench Trent anyway this week and in 37, but I don't see a clean sheet for Ben White. And as much as Wilson's an upgrade on Solanke and he's a good captaincy option, I don't like getting White in for Trent. I don't like that. Last time Everton drew 1-1 at the Etihad. Yeah, they did. It was with Lampard, of course, and City were in worse form at that time. You could say between, December and February, early February, City were a bit suspect, drawing to Nottingham Forest, losing to Spurs and Man United, although they were unlucky in that game. And then, drawing to Everton, losing to Brentford in November just before the World Cup. But, yeah, I think also last season, with the Rodri handball, Man City were a bit lucky to get a result there at Goodison Park. So, look, I think they are capable of getting a result, but realistically, you would give City the edge, of course. Watkins to Wilson for a -4. Yep, I think it's worth it, especially if we get confirmation he starts. Play Shaw, Alvarez. I'd probably go for Shaw, which sounds a bit boring, but that's the way I'd go. Captaincy options, if no Isak or Wilson. From those three, probably Matoma. Thank you, Diogo. I appreciate it. If Wilson and Isak both start, by who? Isak for me. I think he's a bit more nailed on in general. Let's see if we get any... Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get any news, by the way. I'm going to probably lock in my transfer fairly soon, so I'd probably wait another 10 minutes, and if we don't get any confirmation, I'm just going to get Isak in. Jar Sri says, captaincy options of no Isak or Wilson. Yeah, I just covered that. There is no way to get Isak or Wilson without a -8 for me. Yeah, in that case, I go for Matoma as your captain. That's just my personal opinion, though. Start Botman or Grealish? Botman. Bench 1, Shaw, Rashford, or Stupinian. What you could do is just start Rashford just in case, but my gut feeling is just to bench Rashford and start Shaw and Stupinian. Martinelli to McAllister for a -4. Yes, I think it's just about worth it, but the thing is with Martinelli, I think he's a really good option. Play Shaw, Alvarez. I'd go for Shaw. Wilson over De Bruyne long term. Not sure about long term, but for this week, yeah, I think it's worth it. Hi Dylan, do you reckon I should start using both Still and Estupinian in this game week, or am I risking? Well, they've got doubles. I don't see a clean sheet personally, but you never know. And remember, they did keep a clean sheet against Newcastle in the reverse fixture, so it's not impossible. I have Dalot, Grealish, and Ake on my bench. Can they cover Rashford if he doesn't play? Yeah, I think so. Ryle Edison. I'd go for Raya. Since Isak Wilson may not start both games, should I consider the likes of Haaland, Mitoma, McAllister, Trippier for captaincy? Yeah, that you should consider them anyway. I just have a natural preference for the Newcastle forwards this week. Do you think Stones will start? Difficult to say. 1 second. Watkins captain? No. He's just captain because he's going to be the one I sell to Isak/Wilson, and that will be my captain. Robertson or White? Robertson, probably. Arthur says, hi, Dylan. Haaland to Diogo, March to Almiron, and me to Stones. I'm not sure I'd buy Diogo, to be fair. And Almiron, maybe he gets one start, but I don't see him starting both. Me to Stones looks good. But yeah, I'm a bit unsure about those transfers in general. I think there might be better players to buy this week. Wilson over premiums long term? Not necessarily. It's just for this week. Next week, yeah, he's a good option, but would I start him over Salah? Not really. Same with Harry Kane and Haaland, so. Jar, we have answered that question, so if you just rewind 2 or 3 minutes, you'll get the answer. Best midfielder transfer for this game week? Mitoma or McAllister for me. Shaw or Grealish, who first on the bench? Shaw. So I'd put Shaw over Grealish. Made that clear. Bench both Rashford, Stones, or start Isak, Tony, bring Isak for -4. We did cover this already. I'd go for the second option. So start Isak and Tony and bring Isak in for a -4. Should I start Edison or Kepa? Probably Kepa. Wilson or Isak? Isak for me. Bench 1, I'd bench White. Your views on Trippier captain? It is a bit of a differential despite his high ownership. I think Newcastle could keep 1 clean sheet, probably against Leeds, but I'm looking at the forwards, to be fair. What do you think the odds of Grealish starting are? Realistically, they're probably at 60% or something, maybe even a bit lower, but I'm not so sure if he starts, to be honest. And look, I could be overthinking it, but I don't think so. Start Stones or Shaw? Luke Shaw. PR or, yeah, PR. I'll just go with PR. Roll or Watkins to Wilson? Watkins to Wilson for me. Adil says, should I start Rashford and have Shaw on the first bench or bench Rashford? I'd just go for the first one, Adil. I think that might be the way to go. So Watkins for Isak? Yep, I will do that, Ian. Start Grealish, Stones, or McAllister for a -4 and sell March. I would probably do McAllister for a -4, but you don't have to. And in the case that you decide to just roll, I would probably start Stones. Hey Dylan, who do you think are the best Chelsea players for the next few weeks? Probably Kepa. Chilwell if you can recover. And then you're looking at maybe... I'm still not a big fan of the attackers, to be honest. Yeah, probably one of those two. I think they're the best options. I mean, it's not completely impossible, but I think Shaw will start either as a left centre-back or left-back. Watkins to Wilson for a -4? Yeah, I think so. Martinez, Grealish, Nonto, White, bench boost this week. It's not ideal, but it's still a decent bench overall. Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure what your bench, how good your bench would be next week and in 38, you know, depending on your transfers as well, but yeah, I guess so. Honestly, I deal with 50-50. I'm not really confident in either goalkeeper this week. I think the main reasons is because Rye's only kept, well, he hasn't kept a clean sheet since Game Week 22 at home, and that was against Southampton. And West Ham have obviously been in decent form. The counter argument to that is that West Ham could be rotating quite a lot in preparation for their Conference League's semi-final, the second leg. So it's difficult, but I'd maybe give Kepa a bit more of a chance for a clean sheet. It's really close, though. And also, I think most people are going for Raya, at least those engaged managers, so it's a bit of a way to differentiate myself. Yeah, I think it's worth a -4, Billy. Johnston or Kepa? Probably Johnston. I think I'd go for Kepa, but it's really close. Start Edison or Raya? I would go for Raya. McAllister or Mitoma. Sell Tony, Solanke, Allison for Wilson, Isak and Forster from -8. I think it's worth it just for Wilson and Isak. I'm not a big fan of Allison to Forster, but there you go. Kane, Salah or De Bruyne to bring in next week? Probably De Bruyne, simply for the double. Who should I triple captain today? Wilson or Isak, or probably Isak? Start Solanke or Grealish? I would go for probably Grealish, but it's really close. Start Solanke or White? I'd go for Solanke. What to do with De Bruyne? I'd keep. I wouldn't sell him, but I'd even be open to the possibility of benching him. Isak as captain or Wilson? Isak. Will Chelsea finish top 10? I mean, it's possible. Their fixtures aren't terrible, but I think they'll lose against City, maybe draw / lose against United, and maybe pick up one win of the other 2 games. They've also got Newcastle. I mean, well, I say the games aren't too bad. They're not great. I think they win one of their last 4. I don't think that's enough to get into the top half. So, no, I think they finish 11th or 12th, realistically. Pick March or McAllister. Well, March is very unlikely to play the second game. He's ruled out for the first one, so McAllister definitely. Start Grealish or Robertson. I would go for Robertson. Is it worth using a free hit this game week? Potentially, but you could say the same about game week 37 and 38. Remembering your team very roughly, I think you'd probably look to save it for next week. Do I bring in Grealish for Rashford? I plan to bring in KDB and Stones. And I would not bring in Grealish for Rashford, simply put. I don't think it's worth it. And you just said it, Grealish ruins other moves. I don't think so. I don't want to do it. Thoughts on Enciso? I think he'll start against Arsenal on the right-hand side. So I think that Solly March injury could be beneficial for him and his minutes. Having said that, he's not guaranteed to start both games, but he's a nice differential for this double game week. Odegaard or Martinelli in for Grealish? I mean, a few weeks ago I said Martinelli. Right now, Odegaard looks unstoppable. I'd probably favour Odegaard a little bit more, but honestly, both are good. And that's a simple answer. Sell Raya or Kepa? I'd rather sell Raya, technically, because Kepa at least has a double. Just isn't a great one, but yes, it's really close. Both of them have pretty poor fixtures, actually. Bring Trent or Shaw in place of Zinchenko? Probably Trent. KDB, Jota to Salah, Isak -4. Yeah, it's good. Having said that, I don't think you need to sell KDB to Salah necessarily because you might want him back for next week, but it's a good hit overall. I won't deny that. If Wilson doesn't start, who's the best captain? Isak. And he is the best captain for me anyway. Jar, we have already answered that, so I'm not going to go for that again. Start Shaw or start Jota? I'd go for Shaw. Eze or Mac 10 in Game Week 38? Obviously, that's looking a bit far ahead. We've got quite a few Game Week 38 questions already, which is fair enough. By the way, we're only 20 likes away from 100, and we've got over 140 people watching, so be sure to get this stream up to 100 likes. It'd be massively appreciated, especially if we've answered your question and helped you out. For Game Week 38, I probably would go for... You know what? I might go for Eze in that case. No Newcastle news at the moment, as far as I'm aware. Bench boost time, probably now or in Game Week 37. What do you think about Alvarez? I think to sell him. Well, selling him to Isak or Wilson is fine. I think it's worth it. Sell Mahrez or bench him for Tony? Bench him for Tony and have him for next week. I have one spot to fill, KDB, Stones or Zuma. KDB just in case he starts, but I have a feeling he won't. Should I sell De Bruyne or Rashford for Odegaard? Ideally, neither. The one I'd want to keep, if I had to prioritise one to keep, it'd be Rashford, so I'd sell De Bruyne, but you'd probably want him for 37, to be fair. Any comments on Mitrovic? I mentioned him earlier. It's a bit difficult to see him getting straight back into the starting 11, despite how good he is normally for Fulham, because Carlos Vinicius has been pretty good in his absence. 2 goals in his last 2 home games, so it's not a guarantee, I think. Play Watkins or Estupinian? Estupinian. I am free hitting this week. De Bruyne or Mahrez, Alvarez or Haaland. It'd be Haaland over Alvarez, and based on who I think is going to start or who's more likely to start, it's probably Mahrez over De Bruyne, but it's honestly 50-50. Is March playing? No, he's ruled out against Arsenal, and it's a doubt that he's going to make it for the second game of 36. Is Trent worth a -4 for Mings? I like Trent a lot, but I wouldn't take a -4 hit for him this week. I'm chasing around 15 points in the mini league. If Wilson starts, should I captain him? I'd rather captain Isak, to be fair, but if you want to captain Wilson to be different, and I don't see a huge difference between the two, then fair enough. But I think Wilson is less likely to start both games compared to Isak, or at least to get as many minutes. I think Isak starts, but let's wait and see if we get any leaks. At the moment, we don't have anything. Should I keep Rashford or go for Bruno? I'd keep Rashford. So hopefully you got that, Asif. Henrik Rylander says transfer McAllister from -4 or just start Shaw. If it's March out to McAllister, yeah, I think it's worth a -4. But starting Shaw is not a bad thing, to be fair. But I'd rather go for the -4 there. Ralph says, I have a dilemma. I don't have funds for McAllister. Should I roll or do a -4 for him or play Martinelli? I'd probably roll and just play Martinelli in that case. Matoma to March. I'm guessing it's the other way around. So yeah, I would sell March to Matoma. Don't buy much, though, of course. I have 2 Brighton, 2 Newcastle. Is it okay? Yeah. Tony and Mahrez instead of McAllister and Wilson Botman. I mean, Tony and Mahrez could be really good this week. It's not the end of the world there. Sell KDB for Bruno? No, because you might want him back next week, to be fair. My transfer was Alvarez to Wilson. That's completely fair. No, I haven't made my second transfer yet, because, you know, the transfer I've talked about all week was getting in Isak/Wilson. And what I'm doing right now is waiting to see if there's any leaked lineups, any news. Doesn't look like we're getting anything. So, yeah, I'm probably going to just make my transfer very soon. Usually we get confirmation that we're going to get a leaked lineup, you know, quite early on. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get the leaks. Just in case, I'm going to wait another 5-10 minutes, but yeah, I think I'm going to lock in my transfer soon. Yeah, probably within 10 minutes. I'd try to do it before there's 5 minutes left of the deadline because the site could crash, especially if we do get news. But yeah, I'd say by 10 to 11, that's when I'd start to do it. Yeah, that's fine. I'd do it, Junior. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Between Haaland and Salah, who would you captain? Probably Salah this week, just based on how I think both games go. I think City-Everton could be a bit more close, whilst Liverpool-Leicester could be full of goals. Jota to Wilson, I have Isak. Yes, I'd do it. Yanis says start 1, Borro, Moreno or Grealish. Funnily enough, I know people are going to be like, what are you doing? I'd probably start Moreno there. Watkins to Isak. You know what? I'll go for Grealish just for the attacking threat. I think the way Villa and Spurs will go, I think both teams will concede. So really you're relying on attacking returns from both Spanish fullbacks. So I'd go for Grealish. Watkins to Isak, yes, I'm going to do that myself. Also -4 for Kiwior, Isak, McAllister for March, Botman and Watkins. I have to captain Isak because 50 points off top in the league. The thing is, though, if the person at the top of your league is also captaining Isak, you're not really going to get anything there. And if you're 50 points behind and you're taking a -8 hit, all you're going to do is increase the gap to first position. And to be quite realistic, you know, obviously you still got a chance, but it's very unlikely you're going to catch up 50 points in 3 game weeks, even if you're going to be really different. Dylan, which teams have the most favourable games? I covered it before. So the likes of Man United, Man City have the most favourable fixtures, and the double game weeks have a lot to do with it. If I go quickly back to that, so Man United, Brighton, Newcastle, Palace, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal are the top 7 for the most favourable fixtures in the last 3 game weeks. Of course, having a double game week does put you ahead. So, for example, if you just compare the games individually, you'd say Arsenal have easier fixtures than Man City on paper, but yeah, either way, Man City have the double, and therefore they are slightly ahead in the fixture ticker. So if you got that, Man United, Brighton, Newcastle are in the top 3. So going back to my team, and if you do see anything, by the way, from a reliable source, let me know. Do you reckon Grealish starts? No, I could be wrong, but I'm very unsure about that. What do you think of Eze? Good punt for this week, and even for the last 3 game weeks of the season, but he's not my favourite midfielder. Rashford's very unlikely to start is basically the situation. He's got a leg injury, and Ten Hag isn't very optimistic. Start Diaz or Diogo Jota? Probably Jota. What do you think of a -8 for Wilson, Isak, McAllister, Stones for Botman, March, Tony Watkins? I think that's fair. I think the -8 hit is worth it. Yeah, I'd probably go ahead with it. Start Grealish or Estupinian? Estupinian. Would you play Mac 10 over Bruno? Yeah, I would. And keep Haaland or Tony on free hit? Yeah, I talked about this in the free hit video. For me, that third forward is between those two that you just mentioned. I'd probably go for Haaland, but I think Tony could score. Salah to KDB, Grealish to Bruno for Gameweek 37. Yeah, I'm looking at something similar. So Salah to KDB, I think that's really good. Start 2 of Grealish, Rashford, Dalot, Henry, at least one defender needed. I'd go for Dalot and Rashford. And then you could have Grealish first on your bench, Henry second. I need to get rid of March, and I'm left with 5.3. Any good replacement? I covered this before. I'd go for Willock. There's not much, really. Why Willock over Joelinton? Just on the eye test, whenever I watch Newcastle, a bit more impressive. And I think a lot of Joelinton's really good stats are a bit skewed by the West Ham game, where Newcastle won 5-1, I think it was, and also the Spurs game. But look, I think it's really close, and I think most people would favour Joelinton. Thank you, Punjabi. I appreciate it. Good luck this week. Start Shaw or Rashford. Rashford just in case, but I think realistically Shaw will come in for you anyway. I'd go for Shaw over Stones. Captaincy order. From those, it would be Matoma first, probably Trippier second, McAllister third, Salah fourth, Haaland fifth, and Willock last. So you can basically get the vice-captaincy from that. I'd go for Matoma first, then probably Trippier vice-captain. If early team news says Wilson starts a sec bench, what will you do? Get Wilson in probably, and maybe look to captain someone else, potentially. Bench Robertson or Shaw, says T-Tac. I would bench Robertson. Welcome, Ignacio. Un placer saludarte como siempre. ¿Con quién irías, Wilson o Isak? Para mí, Isak. Puede ser que tenemos la alineación antes del deadline y depende de eso, pero para mí Isak va a empezar el partido, tiene más chance de jugar más minutos de ahora hasta el fin de la temporada, así que yo elegiría a Isak. Who is the best captain and choose two, says Abram. For me, the best captain is Isak, and choose two. Yeah, it'd be Isak and probably Willock, but really close between the two midfielders. Start Grealish or Shaw, I just got here. I'd start Shaw. Start Saka or Jota, I'd go for Saka. I'm chasing rank on the mini-league. Would you go for Harrison or Rodrigo as a worthy punt? I generally prefer Rodrigo, but Harrison can always be a bit underrated. I'd probably go for Rodrigo. -8 to bring in Wilson, McAllister, Shaw for Martial, Botman and March. Yeah, I'd go ahead with it. That's pretty good. When should we use the triple captainship? Now on 37. And if you use it now, I would prefer Newcastle forward. If you use it next week, probably on Haaland or a United midfielder. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I think what it is I'm unsure if he's going to start. And it could be a case of Foden and Mahrez starting. It all depends on how Pep wants to line up in the second leg. I think Grealish will start against Madrid. And then it just depends on, does Pep Guardiola want to go for a Mahrez or Alvarez there? It's really difficult to predict him, but maybe I'm being a bit, I don't know, cynical for the sake of it. I just think his chances are, lower than it usually would be. Yep, likewise, Abhishek. Hopefully you do really well. City or Newcastle mid? Probably a City mid. The problem is, can you get the right one who starts now and both games in 37? Very unlikely, but it is possible. Starts Shaw or Stones? I'd go for Shaw. Best differentials in CISO, having both Isak and Wilson at the same time. Also, I'd say maybe going for a Gross instead of McAllister. The thing is, I think Gross will start as a right back against Arsenal. Wilson and Isak start? No clue right now. I would guess they would be Isak, but let's wait and see. Chua and Elise to Dallo and Joelinton. Yeah, pretty standard. I think it's good. I think Elise could do well this week, but the thing is, I think with Dallo, it's a bit... He's not a guaranteed start either, so I think there's some question marks about your transfers in and out, but it is not a bad set of transfers for this week. Concert or Bueno to be first bench? I'd rather put Concert over Bueno, basically. The 75-hour turnaround doesn't favour Grealish. Let's wait and see, of course, but I'm just not really optimistic. I don't think De Bruyne starts, personally, but I could be wrong. I did, and probably obvious, but is Wilson and Stones for Watkins and Burn worth for -8? Yeah, I think it is worth it. Lager says, I see the dilemma. I agree with you somehow. There is surely a chance they won't start. Yeah, there's a chance. I'm not saying he's definitely going to be benched. It's really difficult, I think. I've got doubts, for example, on Mahrez and Alvarez. I think one of them could be a kind of the super... I wouldn't be a super sub in this case. It'd be the surprise inclusion to beat Real Madrid on the Wednesday. Let's wait and see. Willock or Mac? I'm guessing that is McAllister. Especially because Grealish had some calf discomfort towards the end of the game. Yeah, he looked like knackered at the end. Same with De Bruyne. That's what makes you a bit surprised that Pep didn't make subs, but he's probably got his reasons. Matoma captain if chasing rank? Yeah, I'm not against that. He would be in my top 3 or 4. Maybe over Trippier. So the way I'd rank it is Isak first, Wilson second, probably Matoma third, Trippier fourth, and McAllister fifth. No news at the moment. Do you like Madueke as a punt? I mean, he looked okay against Arsenal, but I think maybe the goal maybe inflated people's perceptions of him. I think he's got talent, of course, but I'm not so sure of him as an FPL option. Yeah, I think that's not a bad shout, but the double isn't great. And you're facing United away from home, where they barely concede goals, and you're facing the best team in the world, arguably. So I'm not sure about that. I probably wouldn't go for him. But if you've got a good feeling, go for it. Don't let me discourage you. I would start McAllister over Bruno. Who to captain, McAllister, Gross or Wilson? It would be Wilson, as I just mentioned. I wouldn't go for Buonanotte. I know him a lot from his time at Central. Really talented player, but I think he's raw, he's not ready yet, and he's not guaranteed to start both games, and I don't think he starts against Arsenal. And yeah, there's a chance of him starting against Newcastle, but it would not surprise me if he was on the bench for both. I wouldn't go there. I'd rather go for Enciso. Why Matoma over McAllister for captaincy? I just think he's a better FPL option in general. I know McAllister's been better recently on penalties and all of that, but I'd rather go for Matoma, just my personal preference. Start Alvarez or Martinelli? I would go for Martinelli. Any questions about if Isak or Wilson are starting? It's all going to be based on my opinion, not on facts or, you know, something leaked, because I don't think we're getting the league lineup today. Yeah, I don't see anything. I'm going to have another quick look, but it doesn't look like we're going to get it. Yeah, I think I'm just going to lock it in. It would be so frustrating as soon as I make my transfer, we get the league lineup and then the player I bring in doesn't start. Foden or Mahrez? I prefer Mahrez a little bit more. Bench order, Shaw or Greenwood? Shaw. I mean, Shaw over Greenwood, of course, all day long. I can't find Isak. Should I sell Trent or Shaw and go De Gea next week? Yeah, I think from those, I'd rather sell Shaw, I guess, and then you can get De Gea next week to cover Man United defensively, and then fund Isak that way. But I think selling Trent isn't the end of the world. As good as he's been, you know, you might not even start him this week or next. Bench one, Eze, Stupinian, Gay, and Fernandes. I'd probably bench Gay there. We'll look for captain. Look, he's a good differential this week. If you've got a good feeling about him, go for it. But I'm not really, you know, I'm not that confident of him outscoring Isak, Wilson, Trippier, Matoma, and all those big options this week. Wildcard now or next week? Yeah, it's team dependent, but I think with a wildcard, there's not much value, I think, when you've only got 1 or 2 game weeks left. Even with 3, you know, ideally you would have used it earlier. I'd probably use it now. Start Shaw, Alvarez, probably Shaw. Tony to Watkins, yes. Well, I'd rather do Tony to Isak or Wilson, to be fair. And actually, I wouldn't sell Tony to Watkins. If anything, I think Tony is a bit more likely to score and get bonus points. So no. Play Steele or Kepa? I would play Steele. Start Shaw or Solanke, says Dr. Limbo. I would go for Shaw. Brentford will keep a clean sheet. It's possible, but remember, they haven't kept one since Game Week 22 at home. Matoma was overperforming on his XG not too long ago. Now he has started underperforming. Yeah, he's been a bit unlucky, I think. He has had some good games, but yeah, I think he's been a bit, how do I say this? Maybe a bit wasteful, I think, sometimes. Start Stones or Shaw? Shaw. Why Watkins over Newcastle? Trust me, we've covered that already. Captain Trippier, Isak or Salah? I'd go for Isak. Play Rashford in the chance that he starts? Yeah, I am considering it. I think that's probably the logical thing to do. The thing is, though, I'd be starting him over Bruno Fernandes or Trent Alexander-Arnold, stuff like that. But I think he won't be available anyway, to be honest. So I'm going to make my transfer now. I'll have another quick look to see if we've got any league lineups, but it doesn't look like we are going to get it, basically. So, yeah. Yeah, no Newcastle news. Yeah, no news. I'm seeing if there's anything else. I mean, it's going to be very unlikely we're going to get the leaks from another source. I'm just going to make my transfer now. So Isak in for Watkins, and I will be captaining Isak. I think I'm pretty settled on this. I know Wilson has better stats and stuff like that, but I'm going to go for Isak. Start Shaw or Akanji. I would go for Shaw. Mahrez or De Bruyne. This week, Mahrez. I think overall De Bruyne is obviously the one you'd rather have, but yeah, maybe Mahrez at the moment. Play Shaw or Rashford. Rashford just in case, but the way I see it, you play Rashford. He's not going to play at all. Shaw comes on anyway. Captain Isak, Trippier, Haaland. Isak for me. Bench order, Estupinian and Tony. Well, Estupinian will be a bit higher, simply for the double. Play Edison or Kepa. I would play Kepa, just about. Start one from Grealish or Dalot. Grealish. Yeah, probably Grealish a little bit more. I'm a bit unsure about either starting, both Grealish and Dalot. Keep Rashford in the 11 or start Watkins. Keep Rashford in the 11, just in case. Oliver, if I had to really lean one way, it probably is start Dalot, but it's really close. Gross or McAllister? McAllister. Start Watkins or Grealish? Watkins. Zuma or White? White. Dalot or Stupinian to start? Estupinian. Play Haaland or Rashford or Estupinian. Play Haaland. I mean, yeah, I'd probably play Haaland. Martinelli or White? I'd go for Martinelli for sure. So yeah, I'm going to bring in Isak now. And that is it. Watkins out. I think Watkins will score, by the way, against Spurs, but Isak will be my captain. So this is my final team, I think. The only things that really need to be decided on is the goalkeeper. Do I persist with Kepa over Raya? And do I maybe start Rashford just in case? And even Luke Shaw is in contention. So many benching headaches this week. I think this is the way I'm going to go. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this overall. It's as solid as you can get in Game Week 36, of course, with the odd exception here and there. Zoom or White? I'd go for Ben White. Some of these questions we have covered, by the way, so literally if you just listen, you'll get the answer. James says bench one is Stupinian, Gay, or Shaw. I would bench Gay. Mahrez or De Bruyne? Mahrez, Kepa or Raya? I'm currently going for Kepa. You can see it on screen. Do you think there's any chance that Rashford comes off the bench? There is always kind of chance there, but the way I see it, he either starts or isn't in the squad at all. Should I buy Pope instead of Edison Martinez with a -4? I would not spend the hit for a goalkeeper, as good as Pope and his fixtures are. Start Ake? Yeah, it might be worth taking a risk. A bit like Rashford, you probably think he either starts or doesn't play at all, but I don't know, I have a feeling he might not be available again. Start Rashford or Saka? Probably Saka. Raya or Sarr? It would be Raya. Joelinton or McAllister. Start Steele or Ramsdale. I have a Stupinian starting already. Start Steele. Looks like both of them start. A lot of tweets saying that. Yeah, I'm not sure how reliable these tweets are though. That's the thing. I would have a quick look on Twitter, see if there's anything, but yeah, I wouldn't be too optimistic. Yeah, I'll be a bit curious about these leaks, so to speak, or stuff like that. Yeah, I'd take it with a pinch of salt. He might be right, but you never know. People sometimes do it for clout, so be very careful. I have both Isak and Wilson. For me, Isak is the best captaincy option, just the way I see it, but it's really close. Always back your gut there. Do you think Stones will start? I guess so, but it's so difficult predicting Pep Guardiola. Akanji or Lindelof? Probably Lindelof. Should I play Grealish or Shaw? I'd go for Luke Shaw. Antonio Palmeiro says, hi Dylan, Grealish or Watkins to start? I'd go for Watkins. Edison to Kepa for a -4. I would not take hits for goalkeepers. It's not worth it. Salah or Isak captain? Isak for me. You can see on screen. Start Gross or Stones? Start Gross has got a double game week. Bring McAllister for March for a -4? Yeah, I think so. But if you've got good cover like a Trent or Shaw, you don't need to take the hit, basically. McAllister and Isak for a -4? Yeah, I've done the same transfers for free. For a -4 hit, I still think it's worth it. Captain Trippier or Isak? I would captain Isak. You can see on screen as well. Any captaincy questions, by the way, you're going to see on screen. I brought in Isak just now. I'm captaining him so he can give you a good feeling or understanding of who I think the best captaincy options are, which we've covered already. Start Grealish or Shaw? I would go for Shaw. We have gotten quite a lot of the same questions, so I'm going to go for some different things, I won't lie. Start Steele or Johnson? I will go for Steele. My gut feeling is to start Raya over Kepa, but I could still change it. Yeah, I think it's a really close call. I'm going to actually look at the poll that I put out earlier and see how it's looking like. Actually, Kepa's leading, which is quite surprising. 59%. When I first checked, I think Raya was winning 60% of the votes, so quite interesting there. In terms of the captaincy as well, Isak has 60% of the votes. Wilson has 24, Mitoma has 8, and Trippier has 7. So quite interesting stuff there. And in terms of which defender would you bench out of Shaw, Trent, Estupinian, and second Newcastle defender, almost half of you have gone for Luke Shaw. And in second place is Estupinian with his double. So yeah, kind of gives you an insight into how people are approaching this week. In terms of how many likes we have, we've got over 100, so thank you very much. Let's try to get this to 150 before we wrap up. We're literally 2 minutes away from the deadline, so I'm going to go through these last questions. I know some of them are kind of repeated, which might be frustrating for some viewers, so bear with me. Shaw or Martinelli? I'd go for Martinelli. Wilson titular? No sabemos. Creo que sí, pero no está confirmado. Yeah, I'm not sure where you're getting that, Diavolo. The source I saw it from on Twitter isn't exactly reliable. You know, they might be saying it for clout. Let's wait and see. Yeah, I'll go for predictions as soon as the deadline is gone. Yeah, we're almost lock and loaded. Yeah, I think a back five is potentially worth it. Same defense as yours plus Shaw and Wilson captain. Well, I think Shaw will probably keep a clean sheet this week, so yeah, I think it is worth it. Maddison for Salah. Yeah, I think getting Salah in for him is a good choice. Start Grealish, Shaw or Tony. I'd go for Ivan Tony. Everyone in my mini league will captain Haaland. Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, being different, you know. I know, obviously, backing against Haaland, you know, could backfire, but I think it's a good opportunity for you, in my opinion. Rashford is in 1 on the bench. If he doesn't play, will Shaw come in? Yeah, he will. That's exactly how it works. Thank you, Lager, for the super chat. Very much appreciated. And thank you to everyone else who sent in super chats. Quite a few of them coming in today. So that's always appreciated. Captain Isak, my mini leagues are all Captain Haaland. We just covered that. Yeah, we've literally got 14 seconds left. We have covered pretty much everything. Shaw, Martinelli. I would go for Martinelli, but you know, once again, a word of caution, trying to spam the chat. It's not really, no one wants to see that, basically. Thank you, AG, and thank you to everyone else watching. The deadline has just passed, so even if I wanted to bring in Rashford in my starting 11, that is already a bit too late. I think United will probably keep a clean sheet, but it's really difficult with some of these benching dilemmas. You inevitably will have points on your bench. So that Rashford injury, if he indeed misses out, could be a blessing in disguise for me, because it, you know, maybe eliminates one more benching headache from the equation. But yeah, Isak is my captain. Mitoma's my vice. I've gone for Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal, a back four of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Botman, Trippier, and Estupiñán, Salah, Fernandes, McAllister, Mitoma, Isak and Haaland up front, and my bench is Raya, Rashford, Shaw, and Greenwood. And I used both of my free transfers this week to get McAllister and Isak in. So thank you to everyone for watching. Let's try to get this stream to 150 likes. It'd be much appreciated. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Abiyasul, as well. And now you can definitely rest and have a good sleep. You probably are thinking, I should have gone to sleep because we didn't get the leaks, but you never know. Thank you, Asif. And likewise, thank you very much for that. Reda Anela says, Kane, March, Gakpo to Isak, McAllister, Salah, and take the Manase. Is it worth it? I think it would have been worth it, to be fair. The only thing that I'm a bit unsure about is Kane to Salah. Because neither have a double, and despite Liverpool having better fixtures, Kane is so consistent. So that'd be the only gripe I'd have with those transfers. I think March and Gakpo to Isak and McAllister for a -4 would have been the way I'd go about it. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. Captain Joelinton, hopefully he does really well. He's had a really good streak recently. I'm just a bit concerned about Joelinton with Longstaff potentially being injured for the first game. Yeah, Redder, we just went through that. Yes, I guess it's worth it, but Salah to Kane, or Kane to Salah is the one I'm a bit unsure about. Thank you, Abiyasul. Que tengas un buen día y también un buen game week. Son las 5 de la mañana y no me has dormido. Gracias por todo. Igualmente, Abiyasul, dormí y descansa bien y disfruta del fútbol, como siempre. Antonio dice, thank you, Dylan. Good luck. Thank you very much, mate. And likewise, good luck. And hopefully everyone else watching does well. Thank you, Punjabi. Let's have a cracking free game because that's all we can do now and enjoy the football. Started Rashford over Shaw. Yeah, I technically did the same with my bench. So let's wait and see how it all pans out. Un abrazo, Ignacio. Thank you very much. Thank you, Awali. And hopefully you enjoy the football there from Nepal. I think it was an unuseful decision to get Bowman for a -4 to replace Maguire. Yeah, I mean, I think that should be good, though. It should have, you'd think so. It should pay off. Thank you, Surendra. Good luck to you as well. I've gone for Kepa. You can see it there on screen, K-Mag. Thank you, Ja. Are you of Latino origin, since you seem to be multilingual? I'd love to say multilingual, just bilingual, basically. I speak 2 languages. So yeah, I've got double nationality, basically. And which team do you support? I support Arsenal, my local team. I support Argentina, the national team, for my family. And Rosario Central, which is also a family club, basically. I transferred Wilson and captain him. Yeah, really good shout. Good luck to you. And it's going to be interesting to see who outscores the other, Wilson or Isak. I think they're 2 of the best options this week. I did Kane to Salah because everyone on my mini league has Salah. Yeah, fair enough. It's just, I'm not sure if it's worth a -8, basically, but let's wait and see. Dylan ended up rolling my transfer. Have a good game week. Yeah, I kind of wish I did. But look, I just thought it was worth getting McAllister in. I think that Rashford news kind of pushed me to doing it. Thorson and Ciso as a punt to chase ranks, mini league leader. Yeah, I mentioned him before when people were asking for differentials, and Cecil was one of the first names I mentioned. I think it's a good shout. I think he might even start both with Solly March potentially missing both games too. Thank you, Redder, and good luck to you. Hopefully you get a green arrow too. Welcome, Clifford, and thank you very much. I appreciate that, and good luck. Good luck, Chelsea Blues. Brought in Buonanotte either way. Have a good feeling. Hopefully beats other Brighton assets. Yeah, look, I went to the Brighton game against Wolves a few weeks ago, and Buonanotte came on. He's still a bit raw, in my opinion. And whenever I watch Brighton, I just know Buonanotte has a lot more to offer. And look, I think his best position is actually down the middle, just behind the striker. I don't think, at least at this moment in time, I don't think right wing is his best position. But look, hopefully it goes well for you. You know, Buonanotte doing well would be great. I'm not too sure about him at the moment. I've started Shaw in place of Grealish, as you suggested. Yeah, I think that's the way to go, but you just never know. It's not confirmed, but there are strong rumours of Xhaka leaving. I hope it doesn't happen because he's been integral this season, one of Arsenal's best players. He's turned it around completely. I think he's always been good at Arsenal. He's just been a bit of a scapegoat, and I think playing as a defensive midfielder with his lack of pace up against, you know, quick and pacey dribblers, yeah, you know, that's always going to be a bit of a mismatch. But I think in this new role, he's found a new lease of life. He's been as absolute best. I hope Arsenal keep him and sign the midfielders that they link to, like Declan Rice and all of that. Thank you, Ashish. I appreciate it. Who's your favourite player? Bit boring, but probably Messi. Apart from him, probably Di Maria, you know, players like that. I think that's what I'd look to. Historically as well, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, despite what he did to Argentina. Opinions on Alvarez, I'm not so sure if he starts. That's my big conundrum. Hi, bro, should I bench Grealish or Shaw? Well, the deadline's already gone. I would have benched Grealish and started Shaw. Do you think United are a Harry Kane and a good backup defender away from competing for the title? Competing for the title, yes, but I still think they're a long way away from winning it against the Man City, for example. I still think United need a bit more. I actually think they need a midfielder. I think Eriksen's good, but he kind of tires out around 60 minutes, and United need more squad depth in that position because bringing on a Fred or a McTominay, even a Sabitzer, I don't think is good enough. So I think a midfielder, I'd say a centre-back, and to be honest, you could even make a case for a goalkeeper. I think United need more than just a striker. Of course, that's the main priority, but I think they need a goalkeeper, probably some more squad depth in certain positions like centre-back, which you mentioned, even a new right-back, a new midfielder, and then you can start thinking of the title. Your favourite player currently in the Premier League? Probably Odegaard. Obviously, he plays for Arsenal, that's why, but just the way he plays is really, really good to watch. It would be very Brighton for Buonanotte to score a brace against Arsenal. I mean, I don't think he will. I mean, hopefully I don't jinx it. As much as I like Buonanotte, just please, I need Arsenal to win it and to make the Premier League a bit interesting. Rashford will play? I don't think so. I don't work in the magazine field, Chew. I don't. I never have, actually. But I do understand that question. The one I was asked a bit earlier is about my predictions. So just to go through them a bit briefly, Leeds against Newcastle. I think Newcastle will win, but it's going to be really tight. I think it will be either a 2-0 or 2-1 Newcastle. Even a 3-1 is possible. I'm probably going to go for... I'm going to go for 3-1. Yeah, 3-1 Newcastle. We'll go for that. Aston Villa against Spurs. I think Aston Villa will have the edge. I'm going to give them a 2-1 victory. Chelsea against Forest. 1-0 Chelsea, and even then I'm not that confident. It's mainly because Nottingham Forest are so poor away from home. Palace against Bournemouth. I'd probably go for a 3-1 Palace there. Man United against Wolves. Probably 1-0 Man United. Southampton against Fulham. I'd probably go for a 2-1 Fulham. Brentford against West Ham. That's close, by the way. I'm torn between a clean sheet. It really depends on the lineup, but I'm probably going to go for a 2-1 Brentford. Everton against Man City, 2-0 Man City. Arsenal against Brighton, probably 2-1 Arsenal. Hopefully that's the case. Leicester against Liverpool, I'm going to go for maybe a 3-1 Liverpool. And Newcastle against Brighton, that's a close one. Might even go for a draw. I might even go for a 1-1. Something like that. A 1-1. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. So something like that as my predictions. I'm a bit torn about Newcastle, by the way. They could keep a clean sheet today, but it's just been such a long while. But those are my rough predictions for Double Gameweek 36. Is this the week Ederson finally returns? Hopefully not. But let's wait and see. If he actually starts, you know, if he was benched, that would be absolutely... Imagine Ortega starts and City keep a clean sheet. Ederson owners will be just kicking themselves. But yeah, it's possible. It really is. Morris did great for me last week. Hopefully he starts again or plays 0 minutes. Yeah, and he's also a good option for the double. So going to say jealous, but I would love to have him for that double. If Isak and Morris Hall, I should see a green arrow. Yeah, but it also depends on your captaincy. I'm guessing Isak is your captain, but yeah, let's see how your other 9 players do. Think Messi goes to Al Hilal? No. All the reports coming from reliable sources are that he wants to stay in Europe and be competitive and be in great shape for the Copa America and potentially, although it's a bit of an outside shot, for the next World Cup. What exactly does effective ownership mean? So basically, yeah, EO means effective ownership, and it basically means around your rank, a certain player, the amount of times they're owned and captain will influence. So basically, their ownership and all of that, the effective ownership influences their returns and how that impacts your rank. So the higher the effective ownership is, the worse you'll be affected if you don't have this player or if you don't captain him. So for example, if Haaland is, has an effective ownership of around 200% and you don't captain him, even if you have him in your team, any returns he gets means you're going to get a red arrow. So basically, ideally, you'd want to have players with low effective ownership. And these players that have, just massively owned by most of the game, like Haaland, you'd want to have them in your team. And yeah, you basically have to hope they blank if you don't captain them. That's basically what it means. It's not the greatest description or explanation, but yeah, I think the main things to really understand about it is the higher the effective ownership is, the worse it will affect your rank if you don't captain them. And even if you do captain them and their effective ownership is so high, you're not going to gain too much basically from that. And even a triple captaincy might not be the most fruitful. So that is the problem with effective ownership. It basically increases the template, it makes it stronger. Brighton should play my guy Yasin Ayari more. Yeah, I saw him come on against Wolves. I don't see much of him, to be fair, but yeah, he could be a great shout. Do you think Messi goes to... Yeah, we covered that, Jar. Try not to spam the chat, because it does get annoying. Best football match you watched? Oh, that's a great question. That is a fantastic question. I mean, one of my favourites is Argentina against Italy at Wembley last year in the final. I'd say some Arsenal games as well have been great. In terms of atmosphere, the best by far is Rosario Central against Sarmiento. It was a 1-1 draw in the end, but it came off the back of Central winning the Clásico, so the derby against Newell's Old Boys, and the atmosphere is unbelievable. I've never seen a better atmosphere anywhere in football, so that would be the best atmosphere. The best game, probably Argentina against Italy 3-0, or I'd probably go for like an Arsenal game. There have been some high-quality ones I've been to. Oh yeah, the 3-3 Arsenal against Liverpool. Liverpool were 3-1 up. Yeah, what was the scoreline in the end? Yeah, maybe Liverpool were 2-0 up or something, or 2-1 up. Arsenal came back, went 3-2, then Czech made a mistake. But that game was end-to-end, high-quality football. The defending wasn't so great, but the attacking was fantastic. So that would be one of the best quality games I've been to, too. Yeah, so one of those two, I guess. Maybe Arsenal against PSG. It might have been a 1-1 or 2-2 draw. Can't remember. But yeah, and Emery was actually in charge of PSG at the time. FPL Gamer, we've answered that question a lot of times. I'm not going to go for that again. Did you buy Isak or keep Watkins? I bought Isak. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean, because, yeah, if I captain Watkins, I probably would be crying this week. But yeah, I bought in Watkins. I was actually on the wrong screen there, so I appreciate that. Just imagine Isak is benched. What would happen in the FPL world? Well, you'd probably cry a bit, but then get over it quickly. That's the way it goes. Your top 4 prediction: Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Man United. I think it's a bit too late for Liverpool. Of course, they have a chance, but... Well, I hope the effective ownership on Isak is captaining is low. I don't think it'll be too low. Now, it won't be as high as I mentioned, like 200%, but it should still be over 100%. But any returns you get from him as captain should still be a decent green arrow. Are Leicester going down? It looks like it. At this point in time, I think they will. Forest are going down? I actually don't think so. I still think they've got one more result in them, even against Arsenal. Wouldn't rule it out. So yeah. Then why did Messi go to South America if he didn't have any intention of joining, testing the waters? Oh, Saudi Arabia. I thought you said South America. Well, he's got an ambassadorship. An ambassador role, I think, for Saudi Arabia, and he delayed that trip several times from before. So I don't think it's anything to do with that. Wilson Eze, good shout. I think for the last 3 game weeks and this week in particular. I do prefer Zaha a little bit more maybe for this week, but Eze is a really good shout. He's been very impressive under Roy Hodgson. Thoughts about Chelsea on the potch? Top 4 is becoming way too competitive, and maybe there should be a top 6 for UCL contention in the future. Well, there probably will be, because there's going to be more teams in the Champions League very soon. So yeah, more teams, more qualification places. I think Poch could be a good manager to rebuild Chelsea, but I don't see Poch as a winner necessarily. You know, that kind of manager Chelsea have had over the years, like a Mourinho and Antonio Conte, who will be there to win it in the end. But I think Poch can lay the foundations for the next manager, whoever that may be. So it could be a good appointment, but Chelsea need a lot of work. Both are starting. Yeah, let's wait and see. I'm not sure where you got it from, but if it's from a reliable source, then that's good. Good luck, Sinindra. Decided to take a -8, selling Gakpo, Maddison, and Watkins to Willock, Eze, Wilson, captain. Yeah, good luck, Sinindra. Hopefully it does go well. I like the Eze punt for a 1 week, and Wilson, Willock. Let's wait and see. About time for Botman to score from a corner right. You'd say so, Amir, but we've said this probably for a long time now. Well, of course Man United can score more goals this season, especially at home. Their issue is away from home, to be honest. And yeah, Man United need to address that issue next season. Otherwise, they might not even finish in the top 4. I have the exact same team as you, except Kepa. Yeah, fair. It is what it is, I think. I don't see many... I'm not too confident in most goalkeepers this week. Ironically, De Gea is the one I'm most confident about. Who do you think starts between Grealish and Alvarez? It's not really them two competing for a spot. Alvarez is competing with De Bruyne and maybe Mahrez, basically. I don't know. The more likely for me to start is maybe Grealish, oddly enough, but I'm not too confident on either. Let's wait and see what lineup Pep has in store for us this time. But yeah. Yeah, Joe, I think that's a bit... I don't get this notion that people say that, oh, this is Arsenal's... You know, they're not going to compete again. I can understand this is their best chance, but it's the youngest team in the league. They literally went from 8th to 5th to 2nd, and, you know, if that's where they finish, it's still really big progress. I think they have bottled 3 or 4 games, but let's think about it. They could get 90 points this season. They've gone away to Newcastle 1. They've obviously beaten United at home, Liverpool at home, beaten Spurs twice, beat Chelsea twice, beat Brighton already, could do it again. It's been a really good season. Led the league for most of the season. I really disagree. Honestly, Liverpool will probably improve. I think they're going to be a big threat. They could even finish above Arsenal, but it's not a guarantee that Liverpool and United will finish above them. I heavily disagree there. So yeah, thank you very much to everyone for all the questions and comments. It's been a pleasure. We've covered everything you need to know for Double Gameweek 36, and just good luck at this point. Let's see who is the highest scorer. Let me know in the live chat who you think it's going to be. Probably the one you captain in the end, but you know how it all goes. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, smash the like button. Let's try to get this stream to 150 likes before we go. And be sure to share this stream around with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy. The plan is to do some more UCL Fantasy content in preparation for match day 12, the second leg of the semi-finals. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. But thank you to everyone. Thank you, Vasilis, as well. It looks like we all have pretty much template this game week. Yeah, in terms of engaged managers, we're all going to have a very template team. Unfortunately, it's a bit inevitable at this point. Effective ownership probably plays a big part. All the content out there as well. My only difference in my lineup is I start De Gea. Well, honestly, I think De Gea has a better chance of a clean sheet, so you probably will score more points than me this week, unless you have a different captain, and then maybe that's where the difference lies. But yeah, good luck to you, Vasilis, and everyone else watching. Be sure to smash the like button on your way out and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you very soon. I'll keep you updated on future streams and stuff like that, but definitely the plan is to do a deadline stream on the Tuesday for UCL Fantasy Match Day 12. Be sure to tune in for that and all the content headed your way for both FPL and UCL Fantasy. Take care, enjoy the football, and I'll see you next time.